Welcome to episode 80 of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast from Dick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host as always, and this week we're going to just quickly catch on a bit of news that we did miss about the free agency, talk about the rest of the trade period, all of the best and fairest that happened during the period either just before the grand final or just after the grand final, and catch up on the AFLW as well, and we'll also do a little bit of touching on just all 18 lists, AFL team lists, and just the players that they have lost either to retirements, delistings, or trades, and just kind of see where every team is currently at. So, without further ado, how are you doing, Mr. Sarek?
Not too bad, not too bad. Sort of, guess recovered my energy since last week. Back home safely, as you can see by the background. Apart from that, bit of a weird week. I had some weird news last week, but everything sort of ended out as okay as it could be. And apart from that, quiet weekend and just watching the craziness that was the NFL this morning. There was a lot of crazy results. Watching the New York Giants have a 30-0 lead in the end of the third quarter and then lose, which was interesting. Not 30-0, was like 28-0 or something along those lines. It was pretty crazy. And I was like, well, like sometimes I feel bad about my teams, and then I look at like American sport and I'm like, man, some teams are just like consistently bad and like laughing stock bad. And Port, they're just bad sometimes, like unfulfilled more than like terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm glad about that.
Fair enough.
I also watched a bit of the W.
Yes, as did I. I was boots on ground for the Collingwood-Richmond game yesterday as we're recording this, or Sunday, if you're watching this on Tuesday, of course. It was a good game. Glad that we won. Got our second win of the season with only 2 rounds left. Always good to see. But no, actually going to Victoria Park, actually decent ground. Had a good time. Atmosphere was really good. It's no punt road, of course, but we can't use that for a while anyway. But yeah, no, it was a good game. Looking forward to watching Fremantle Richmond this weekend. You might be boots on ground for that one.
Should be, unless something weird happens. I've forgotten about something or something or other. I've only been to one game this season.
Yeah, that's true. Like we've both been very busy. You've also just been sick as well every now and then.
Yeah, it was a couple I was sick for. And then as I said, the Melbourne trip and my granddad's birthday.
Yes.
Which I didn't want to miss. So as I said, just all happening. It was weird. It feels like every other Saturday that isn't a Freo home game has been quiet. So sometimes it's like that.
And then, I plan on being at the Richmond Gold Coast game to end the season. Not the Sunday coming up, but next Sunday, which would be good to see. Hopefully we'll get our third win there. Because I'm assuming we're not going to beat Freo, but, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but Freo were pretty bad against the Giants, even though they won, so who knows.
But otherwise there's not much more to really talk about. So we may as well just get stuck straight into all the news we got to catch up on. So we'll start with the free agency move that we missed out on, being that Liam Ryan has moved from West Coast to St Kilda.
Yes, and obviously this is a big one. This is unrestricted free agency move, so they don't get any compensation, just straightforward transaction. And Liam Ryan, pretty much solidly surf West Coast, I would say. I would say he's done enough to do his time, a bit up and down with injury, but not going to do much in this current forward line of West Coast, which seems more and more to overtaken the terribleness of what was their defence. Their defence is building, whereas I think now their forward line has unfortunately peaked in the other direction.
Yeah.
As for St Kilda, I was going
to say with the loss of Liam Ryan and of course Oscar Allen as well, things are not looking great for the West Coast forward line. But as you said, like they're building their defense fairly well. Having we've seen some of the younger players grow over the past 12 months, especially someone like Harry Edwards, and Ruben Gibney, which has been really good for them.
Brought in Starcevic, which we talked about last week.
Yes, which is big for them. Provided he's able to stay on the park with his concussion issues. And yeah, it's for St Kilda. Like this is a good pick. Again, he's still more of a veteran talent rather than um, you know,
Hmm.
he might not play all 20 something games, but he's a small forward. They need that kind of better small utility
Yeah,
up
because
in that forward line
I
because
think
Higgins isn't really providing all
they
that
struggle.
much. Butler's injured.
Oh, Higgins provides a lot. It's just
Not
he
this year.
can't provide everything. He was pretty good this year. He
Mm,
had like what 38, 40 goals in a terrible forward line.
true. I mean, they did kind of have a makeshift whole forward line because considering they never had Max King out there.
Yeah, exactly. I think, St. Kilda are definitely building around going to ground, which is like one of the better things for Liam Ryan. I don't think it's going to have too many like possession outputs, but I think they're just wanting him to provide a couple of goals when Jack Evans goes a bit more into distribution mode, whether he has like a struggling matchup or something like that. So
Yeah,
I'm going to bolster him. I don't think it's going to like change the my view on the Saints offensive output for 2026, but either way, it's still a good pickup.
yeah, I completely agree with that. Next on our list is a pick swap. Essentially, Collingwood and Brisbane have done a pick swap that have tied that contributed to deals that we're going to talk about just in a moment. But this was pick 45 and 56 from Brisbane to Collingwood, and pick 59 and a 2026 third round pick to Brisbane from Collingwood. So that ended up opening up the Jack Buller trade. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before we do,
Yeah. I
we
like completely blanked on what
uh,
did that do?
we now move on to Braydon Fiorini, who was traded from the Suns to the Bombers for a future third round pick.
Yeah, this is sort of one where I'm like, I don't know. I think Fiorini is such a tease. Like every time you think, oh, he's going to fall out of the competition, he gets some form. Whenever he gets some form, whether it's just talent around him or he doesn't seem to hold it all that long. So I don't know. Maybe a third round is a bit high for him, but as I said, he was fairly serviceable, and as I said, a bit of a veteran presence on the wing. I think the Bombers just have enough young people anyway, so bringing in this experience and maybe paying a tiny bit overs is fine. But yeah, in a vacuum, I think Gold Coast will be very happy with this trade because, as I said, Fiorini was probably delistable in form a couple of years ago, so. They end up getting a future third out of him in his twilight years. So
Yeah, I agree with this. I think Fiorini will actually contribute a lot more to the Bombers, especially when they've had injury issues along their wings for quite a bit now. Granted, Dersmo is finally back on the park and is actually running fairly well, but he's like the only one that they've kind of really got at the moment in that position. So
yeah,
having someone
they're
to
sort of
go with
like
him.
Nick Cox sort of was that taller base player, but I don't think he's gonna. He didn't get delisted, did he? I
No,
don't know,
no,
but
I
yeah,
think
as I
he's
said,
injured
he's just
mostly, as per
yeah,
majority of the list. To be fair.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, as I said, they had another one there that sort of just played a few. So I don't know, it just opens up a bit of the outside game, which is a flagging when compared to their inside game. So, as I said, I don't think this is a bad trade for Essendon. It's just, they probably paid a tiny bit over, but that's like economy.
Yeah, it's a good call. Plus again, he's kind of being pushed out of the Suns' kind of best 22 anyway. So newer
Yeah.
pastures to a younger team, definitely good signs to continue a young career. Um, I say young. He's on the mature age side, but he's not too bad. He's not super young. He's
Fiorini.
24, I believe.
Fiorini? No. He's been around for ages. He'll be
No,
nearly
sorry, he's
30.
28. He's 28. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, that is nearly 30 to me.
Yeah. He's not super. He is mature age, but not entirely a veteran just yet.
Yeah, as I said. So, yeah, he's Yeah, as I said, I think I've like talked at length about my ness for Braydon Fiorini,
Ah,
but
that's fair
he's a
enough.
very interesting player. If he does ever make, like, you know what I mean? It's like he is a player that I could see like having a really solid year or two as a role player. I just think we've seen what we've seen from him at this point, and that's at best an okay player.
Yep.
And yeah, as I said, third round's around that mark.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next on our list is that Connor Budarick from the Gold Coast Suns transfers over to the Western Bulldogs for pick 37. Um, and the Suns also send back pick 70 alongside Budarick.
Yeah, so this is one where I actually think the Dogs, I mean, they gave up arguably a bit for him. Like, it's a gamble one, but at the same time, as I said, he's the one that's 24 years old. That's maybe where you got that number from.
Yes, yeah, that is.
But you know what I mean? Like, he's a developed body. We've seen him actually play fairly well. It's just the question of can he get his body right? Because there's been a couple of years where he hasn't quite played as many games as he wants to. So he's only played a couple of games. In fact, 2025 was actually the most he's put on the park, and he still missed a few games. So yeah, a bit speculative, I guess, but I honestly rate him as a player. I think this is a pretty good pickup in an area where the Bulldogs are really, really struggling. And he's a good budget pick because we know that the Western Bulldogs are putting their money in other areas. So a player like Connor Budarick, you may be overplayed in the draft, but is probably on a decent contract. So yeah, as I said, I think the trade-off probably works for him.
Yeah, I think so.
I really like this move.
Yeah, so do I. I think this is such a good get for the Dogs, especially when they have been definitely needing a couple of spots to be filled in terms of players with solid utility. Budarick will fill some of those roles really well. And it's just about kind of fleshing out their depth a bit more as well.
Yeah, because was it Bustlinger and O'Donnell?
Yes.
The other two, yeah, they really could have used some support. So I know Budarick isn't really the tallest player, but he is very defensively accountable. In fact, he's only 175. I would have guessed 180, but yeah, there you go. Like he does play taller than he actually is. So decent distribution as well, but sort of that well-rounded utility player. Probably takes that medium-sized forward, and just adds a bit more depth. Doesn't make everything Rory Lobb's problem.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Because he since moving to the backline, Rory Lobb has just done too much and isn't getting enough support down there. So
yeah, I mean, he was fantastic last year, but his numbers did technically suffer. I don't think his performance did. In fact, I would rate last year higher than the comeback portion of 2024. But
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, as I said, it's good to see that they're still putting some effort to make it not just a forward half part of their team.
Agreed with that. Next on our list is that Ollie Florent has been traded to Carlton from Sydney for a future third round pick.
Yeah, and this one's sort of interesting. Honestly, I don't know how old Ollie Florent is. Is he the same age as Fiorini?
He's 27. He's a little bit younger.
Okay. Yeah, well, as I said, so I don't think this is too bad a move. I guess the only thing you could say is probably injury-wise, actually, no, Florent hasn't been injured for a while. It's just his form last year. Yeah. Decent pickup. Good, fast halfbacker, especially when Carlton's rebounding was pretty awful last year. And I think this one probably is more likely to be, I think this is a very on the value trade, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think Florent is still good enough to warrant a third rounder, know his skill. Sort of fell out of that side with a few of Sydney's shuffle of defense. I don't think it was that great last year, but I think it's definitely worth chucking not too much at him just for a bit of depth. And I think he'll make the best 22, but you know what I mean? It's like, it makes him accountable and it makes Carlton's depth accountable, whether they want to continue trying to play Ollie Collins on the halfback line where he sort of struggled a bit, or as I said, there are a few other good players that tend to be injured. Obviously, Doherty and Sard, so just adds a bit of solidity there.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good move, especially for Carlton as they try to get back into being a good team. Although with the loss of Curnow, which we'll talk about in a minute, it doesn't help them all that much. Although, it's kind of hard to tell at the moment, just because Carlton have had so many different moving pieces across the past 12 months, and Curnow, whilst it's always been serviceable, wasn't the greatest of forwards this season, so it's just kind of interesting.
Oh, this season, I was gonna say.
Oh no, he's a great forward. Just like he was. Just, outside of his injuries,
he just couldn't get on the park, really. Yeah, I think he only averaged like 1 point. I know that's still 1.8 goals a game, but it's like a lot lower than his normal output. So yeah, 18 goals, 1.8, only 32 goals for the season.
It's hard to tell where the Blues currently sit after this trade period, just because of all of the moving pieces that they've had to kind of figure out.
I think I know where they sit. It's just how they approach it. I think I see, and we'll probably talk a bit about it later when we get to the Curnow trade. But stuff like this again, I think it's one of those things where it's like tempting to just like fully bottom out. It's like when you're losing Curnow, that's pretty much set in motion. And it's like, oh, we'll just like tank for a few years or whatever. And it's like, you still need a bit of depth so you're not looking miserable. And I think picking up a player like Ollie Florent for cheap bolsters an area of the ground that shouldn't be terrible for Carlton. I think their half-backing rebound was more bad structurally than the actual players they had on the park. So same could be said about their defense in general. But so as I said, hopefully this might be a chance for them to retool a bit. So as I said, Ollie Florent, exciting halfback player, can be very useful. So we'll see if he adds to that.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be positive signs into 2026. Speaking of positive signs, the Melbourne Demons have taken CJ or Changkout Jiath from Hawthorn for pick 42 and a 2026 fourth rounder.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one because, last year I think we were talking about is like, I mean, we knew that Sam Frost was going to like fall out of that Hawthorn rotation.
Yes.
He got delisted earlier today, if anyone, or maybe it was yesterday, but again, we'll talk about that in a bit. But it was very interesting to see CJ just not break back into the team. He looked a bit tentative when he did, but I think sometimes, I'm not going to say like the pressure got to him, but sometimes as a defender, sometimes the worst thing you can do is try and prove yourself because sometimes like the best defenders, like you don't notice them as much. But yeah, CJ, I think Melbourne could use a really good rebounder because obviously their midfield is going to change, so that draws some of the players that used to play more of halfback.
And they've also they've also lost Charlie Spargo as well, so they lose out his speed as well as he's gone to North.
Yeah, a bit more on the wing, but I know what you mean. As I said, it means that they're going to have to move some players. So somebody from the halfback like Rivers, even Salem could spend a bit more time in the midfield. Means that they have to have someone a bit more defensively accountable. Enter Changkout. They're gone fairly cheap, to be honest. I'd say still fairly cheap. As I said, it's second round, but it's basically a third, like pick 42. As I said, so they're basically playing a third and a bit. I think that's fair. He's got some talent, fairly young, just out of position in that Hawks defense.
Yeah, plus on paper that defense is way too hard to break into anyway. So it's kind of that risk of, are you willing to stay another year and try and break into one of the best defenses on paper, or are you better off moving clubs, guaranteeing yourself more game time, and just seeing what happens? And Melbourne needed his utility, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I mean? I think it's also one of those things where like Hawthorn, especially the problem is that 185 mark is not like a Budarick who I mean it's still mobile, but you know what I mean? Is like there's just so many archetypes of like a Changkout GF type player at Hawthorn already. And that's why I said it's like why I was maybe a bit skeptical about the way they heavily approached getting Barras and Battle, but yeah, as I said, maybe they just thought that he would be good trade value later. Like, it's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, as I said, so he'll get a couple of years to prove himself at Melbourne before he has a contract renegotiation. So,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Next on our list is Jye Sarong has moved to the Sydney Swans, with the Swans sending a future third to Hawthorn and a future fourth alongside that as well.
Oh, sorry, Sydney get Jye Sarong and a future fourth.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Hawthorn received a future second.
Yes.
Third, sorry.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, as I said, Sydney definitely need better backstop. Like, there's no doubt that on paper their defense was pretty atrocious last year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they've got sort of a depth player. Sort of, again, what we mentioned with Chungnoth is like Jye Sarong was never really going to break into that side. Granted, the few times I did see him, I was like, you know, it's an okay play. It's very hard to tell with Serong because he's still a player that, you know, probably needs a bit more skin on his bones, meat on his bones. Only 22. Yeah, very tall. So as I said, this is just a bit of a speculative trade. But I would say, yeah, the value's roughly there. The need's roughly there, and I think Hawthorn are pretty fine with just getting a third rounder for him, even if it is like a conditional. You know, it's like a what? Technically, yeah, moved up a tiny bit.
Just a little bit.
Next year.
I know there were a couple of Fremantle fans that are hoping he would end up over there to be with his brother Caleb. Obviously the very famous Caleb Serong. It was not meant to be, but he's now guaranteed more senior game time at the Swans, whereas I don't think he would have been able to break into Frio's system for a while.
I mean, the only thing you might argue is if, like, you know, there was another Alex Pearce injury or maybe Brennan Cox, but I mean, they've still got young Draper. No, not Sam. Josh Draper.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, a few others. Like, there's a lot of players on the fringe. Like, well, I think they delisted Oscar McDonald. I can't remember, but
we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, as I said, Walker struggled to find his feet as like that mid-sized defender. I know probably not as key as Sarong. Same with Chapman. He had a pretty ordinary year. Who wants to rebound? So, yeah, I wouldn't imagine Sarong ever fitting for Freo. I think that was just like fans wanting brother by brother, but this is a much better move.
Yeah, agreed. Although I definitely think some other teams could have used his kind of utility as he grows as a player, but he's pretty much guaranteed game time at Sydney with this move, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah, pretty much straight away. As I said, I think Serong is just a player we haven't actually seen enough of to really determine much of anything. As I said, like he could have potential to be like a you know stocky, not stocky, but you know what I mean, like a decent clamp, tall defender. It's just again, he's just been a bit outbodied. Okay, pace. Like it's funny. It's also funny how different he is from his brother. You know what I mean? Like just the height difference and the sort of craftiness. Serong doesn't quite look as agile as Caleb does at times, so sort of funny how the genes distribute.
Yeah, it's the genetics work in mysterious ways. All right, next on the list is a pick swap between Hawthorn and Carlton. Hawthorn gave away pick 9, 31, 42, and 43 in exchange for picks 10 and 22 from the Blues. This was to help strengthen their hand to try and get Merrett out of the Bombers. Obviously, as we know, it didn't happen. But it still means that they have a
Hmm.
fairly decent draft hand going into the draft.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a. I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say that this was like about because obviously they traded down, gave up some later depth, but got a late first round pick. Because the difference between 31 and 22, like, it isn't that much. Like, I think Hawthorn definitely gave up overs to try and push the Merrett trade, which obviously didn't happen. But I don't think this is like a. This isn't going to be like a huge swing in the scheme of things.
No,
Like,
I don't think so either.
it's immeasurable. You know what I mean? It's like you could nail pick 22 and it's like, well, maybe you work out, but it's also like, if they stuff this and the next best pick was at 23, do you still call this a good trade because there was talent there? You just didn't pick it, Who knows? But as I said, I think Carlton are just a benefactor in Hawks going for Merrett and coming up a bit short.
Yeah, I agree. And it's weird how these picks kind of move around because pick 10 and pick 22 um, were the compensation picks that Carlton got for De Koning and Silvani. Pick 42 came
Yeah.
from Melbourne for CJ, and pick 43 was compensation for Hawthorn losing Warple. So it's kind of just weird how it's all kind of just come together from different avenues.
Yeah, well, as I said, I think Hawthorn just need like enough draft picks at this stage. Like they've got their core group. So you know what I mean? Carlton, again, they probably want a few for depth. They shed a fair few aroundish players. So like they obviously don't need to go heavy in the draft. They've still got like a good crop of talent. Well, comparatively anyway.
Yeah.
Jagger Smith returning, the Camporeales, and another one, I think. Also on the ones that made the park, like Moya and all that. So,
Yeah, we talked about a little bit about this last week.
yeah, it's just about bolstering off where they're a bit lacking, which maybe like, the small forward areas, the running outside players, and maybe you start to think of investing into your next midfielder. That's probably what they use pick 9 for. For eventually when Cripps, who arguably had a fairly vanilla year, arguably bad by his standards, in 2025, if we're being harsh, but
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens on draft night as to what kind of moves end up occurring. Next on our list, this was a surprising trade. No one was kind of expecting this one to happen. Kind of came out of nowhere. But Finnbar Maley, who became a little bit of a cult favorite in 2025 for North, is on his way to the Adelaide Crows, and the Crows sent over pick 64. No, sorry. North give up pick
North
64 in exchange for pick 57 and a 2026 fourth round pick.
Yeah, this one's sort of, I guess interesting. They didn't really get much for him, but I don't think Maley was worth much. I think, honestly, yeah, I don't really see him getting that much game time. Like, I think people forgot how good Trembuff was, or maybe they forgot that Maley and Trembuff were different people.
Possibly.
Because, yeah, Maley, he had maybe like, I think he had one multiple goal game. It was exciting. He just didn't quite have the hands. I think he's a tiny bit older too. Maybe he just looks older. Yeah, 22-year-old. I guess it's not that old. But yeah, like, I think North are more likely to not want to build into him, where I think Crows have probably got that. I know it sounds weird, but like, with Tex going, they still don't only have two real, key forwards. Like,
Yeah, I believe this trade is
it's
more so
weird
to
that North
cover-
Melbourne have more depth in the tolls than Adelaide do, and Adelaide were one of the best scoring teams of last year.
Yeah, I think this trade is more to cover depth for Tex and be able to trade someone up as like a protege for his position.
Yeah, and as I said, that's why I don't mind this deal as for thinking for Adelaide. I think North will just be like, okay, like we'll just get something because I don't know, maybe I'm being harsh on Maley. I wouldn't have imagined he was too heavily in their plans after last season, but yeah, as I said, he's still not. I'm not saying it was bad. It's just like you know, he definitely didn't quite look to have it all together as a player, even though he had good fun bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fair. All right, next on our list is one of the bigger trade period news. This is one of the ones that people had been keeping an eye on throughout the entire trade period, and it is Jamarra U-H officially moving on from the Bulldogs to the Gold Coast Suns for pick 74.
Yeah, it's how do you assess this? Because, like, on one hand, you're like, oh, Jamarra U-H, like, he could be anything, like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, he could also not play a game for the Gold Coast. You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's
this is the speculative pick that could, like, change uh,
yeah. This
the Suns, really.
is the biggest trade period news that still has such a big cloud over it. Because again, on one
Yeah, I
hand,
don't think anyone knows.
if Dimmer is going to be able to straighten him out and mold him into the footballer he was meant to be, he's going to be huge for their forward line. Like, because again, they don't have, whilst they have some part of a forward line, it's been very makeshift when you have Ben King, Ben Long, and occasionally some other players popping up around there.
Yeah, they played. Look, this year they played Ethan Reed and Jed Walters, both of who are very much underdone. So if you change one of those for Jamarra U-H and you get 20 games out of them, like, because we all know King's just like everything goals. But Jamarra does a few more of those small stuff. So I think that's like the biggest bonus is like we've seen times where Gold Coast forwards, if they're not presenting, they're not doing much in the forward line, whereas Jamarra has that ability to just do a tiny bit more. He's a bit better on his feet, obviously, than King. I guess Long can sort of do that stuff, but you know what I mean? He's getting older.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I think, again, I think the fit's there. As I said, all the speculation, I don't think anyone is going to be able to tell. But at the same time, I do think... yeah, you want to be hopeful that he can put things together, get a fresh start. But again, it's also the Gold Coast, you know what I mean? It's not exactly where you would be sending a player with outside of football issues if you, like, were picking, you know?
To be fair, if we had to pick between kind of Perth or Gold Coast, I feel like Gold Coast is probably slightly better. Because according to locals, i.e. My cousins, who I was spending time with over the weekend, who are from the Gold Coast, things aren't as, party and all that sort of kind of no stuff, as it's been known for in the past. It's not super as much as that anymore. I know
there is. I think more kids.
Schoolies
Yeah, I
and
was
stuff
gonna
like that
say,
doesn't
like,
help. But I think in terms of just if you're there on a permanent basis, it's a lot more calm and stuff than it can be kind of portrayed.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think it's because like kids are broke now. You know
That
what I
too.
mean? Like, I think that's like an economy thing where it's like when you're younger, there's a lot more ways to get fast money in Perth. Fly in, fly out.
Yes.
Mainly talking about.
Yes,
But
big
yeah, as I said, yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe you're right there. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it's just a fact to consider. You know, you don't want to like target players too much, but you know, as I said, it's just an outside risk that you know you're going to be taking. But yeah, as I said, the Bulldogs really they just wanted something to get them off their books.
Yes.
Like really, this is are you willing to take on that contract?
Well,
to try
as far as I'm aware for this, the contract is wiped clean. It's a brand new, fresh contract for him. The Dogs aren't paying anything for it, so it's completely...
No. That's what I'm saying. It's off the Dogs list now.
Yes, but I don't think the Suns have taken on like his contract. He's got like a completely separate contract with clauses and stuff inside of it for obvious reasons. So it'll just be...
I thought it was okay.
I thought,
because I was looking at Footy Wire and it says out of contract at the end of 2026. So I thought they had to pay for one more year, but maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he might only technically be on like a 1-year contract, but like just purely for this stipulation. But I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, as I said, on paper, the most up in the air whether it, like I said, I think the Bulldogs are just, you know, Jamarra's a lost cause for them. So Yeah, as I said, like no one's judging the Bulldogs for just taking a fourth round
No,
for it.
I
But
think
as I said,
I
this is
think
just
everyone
like,
knew that like they just wanted him out of
yeah,
and into out of the team list off the books and into a better system that'll hopefully get the best out of him.
yeah. Honestly, I think most of the Bulldogs, like someone will be annoyed at him, but I'm talking about like more coaching stuff and all that. Like all that being said, I still think they would probably want the best for him. Like people talk about bad blood and all that
No,
sort of stuff, and like
I don't really think there'll be bad blood
I
here.
never really got that. Yeah, I said you hope not, but as I said, I'm sure he'll get a few beers. The next Gold Coast versus Bulldogs match.
Yes. All right. Next on the list is Jack Buller is officially moving to Collingwood. Sydney gave up Buller and a future fourth round pick for a future third round pick from the Magpies.
Yeah, Collingwood obviously going young in their forward line now. Especially we're going to be talking about their other like older player movement, but yeah, honestly, again, I think the Swans have done pretty well out of this. I don't really know how certain you would that Buller would be like a really good player or enough to warrant a even if it is a traded third rounder, you know what I mean? But yeah, as I said, it's not like heavy, like it's not an investment that's going to wreck your season or anything. But as I said, it's a bit of a gamble, like low stakes, but still a bit of gamble.
Yeah,
And as I said, I think the Swans will just take third rounder every day of the week, even if they did have to send a fourth rounder for it.
yeah. I think they were kind of looking for future future depth protection, I guess, by moving up a little bit in next year's draft. So that'll just be something for them to keep an eye on, especially because this will be Dean Cox's second year at the helm, 2026. So that'll be something he's definitely keeping an eye on in terms of working with his team to rebuild his list essentially. So I think it's a good move. On the Collingwood side of things, though, yeah, it remains to be seen whether Buller will fulfill the needs that Fly needs for his structure. But I mean, with the players that they've lost this offseason, they definitely needed to fill in a couple of holes, at least to begin with.
Yeah, as I said, it's just because it's not that young. It's 24, mid-season pickup from last year, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. As I said, it's probably just like they need not because I said like Collingwood's forward line is just now it's like what Tim Membry, Jamie Elliott,
Tim Membry,
and
Jamie Elliott,
Bobby Hill
Bobby
surfacing
Hill,
up when
who's
he
probably
does.
still got one more year in him. Um,
Oh, he's got more years in him. I just wouldn't like. I wouldn't think that it's healthy to centralize a forward line around Bobby Hill. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Whereas like you're centralizing the forward line in for
yeah. Actually,
Collingwood,
I've got
as I
no
said.
idea what Collingwood's forward line kind of looks like right now, because what? No
Yeah, it's
Myocheck,
literally just
no
Membry
Hoskin
Elliott.
Elliott, no Cox. We'll talk about that in a bit. And yeah, they kind of just got
Yeah, there's every chance that Buller just
three
plays next
veterans and
20 best 22.
depth. So yeah, he might slot straight in. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, that's what I said. You can see why they did it, but you know what I mean. I think they just because it's an immediate need. I think that they would pay overs for what I'm imagining would just be a okay player. I would be surprised if he kicked more than 25 goals next season.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next on my list is one that I'm actually a bit of a fan of. Patrick Retschko, who was actually originally delisted by Geelong, was swooped up by Richmond
Hmm.
and came over to the Tigers on the last day of the trade period for pick 99. Just a little bit of backstory on this. Retschko is a Richmond fan growing up, born and raised. So I have already have a personal bit of love for him straight away. But essentially, the way that it kind of works is that instead of for a player like him who got delisted by a club, um, having to wait until the secondary free agency window opening up at the start of November,
Hmm.
or the kind of like the rookie draft opens up again, something like that. Because he's still
Yeah.
technically tied to a club until that window opens, a team can come in during a trade period and make a late swap. which is exactly what we did, because that
Yeah,
more so just guarantees it for him to end up at the club that he would want to go to, rather than another club picking him, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, like, even though we say delisted, technically they're not out until the start of I think it's the draft.
Yeah, it's like there's a
players from last
secondary
year
free agency window for delistings and stuff like that.
It happens a bit
and then
before
there's the actual draft itself, which is like a couple days later.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. But as I said, like, obviously there's no data of which to know. This is just, Richmond getting a player, paying next to nothing.
Pretty much.
Just because they like the look of him. And yeah, as I said, it's not a bad pick. As I said, you basically, I mean, Will Brodie went for less.
Yeah, so he did. It's true.
Puts that in perspective.
Essentially, it's young player. I actually don't know how old he is. I think he's like 23, maybe. His age is not actually in this article. But he basically kind of stuck in Geelong's VFL list for a while. But he's still fairly young. Definitely someone we could fit into our system, because we have a very young list at the moment. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how he grows. He does have a history of playing with some of our young players already. He was in a team with Taj Houghton back in the pre AFL days, back when they were playing for like TSA Cup and stuff like that. So we already have some pre-existing history that we can utilize there, which is nice. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah, 19 and 7 months.
There we go.
So he hasn't even hit 20 yet.
Very young. But yes, definitely going to be one of the players to watch, I think. Because granted, you look at like Geelong's lists over the years, and they've always been managed to find these really weird diamonds in the rough kind of players. Lawson Humphreys was one of those ones who's kind of popped up. And I think he's one of these ones as well. I'm just glad we managed to swoop up on him.
Yeah, hopefully. As I said, if you got a hunch, you didn't give out that much, why not?
All right. Now, one of the next big pieces of news that come out.
Not quite as big this trade, but we'll still talk about it.
This one we knew was going to happen eventually. This was meant to happen probably last season, and it didn't. But Christian Petracca has officially left the Melbourne Demons for the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, and geez, what a haul they've got for him. Honestly, hard to argue that he isn't worth as much as that, but it's still a lot. So the Suns get Christian Petracca, 2 second-round picks, currently 28 and 24, and a 2026 second-round draft pick, which is tied to Melbourne, whilst Melbourne receives 2 first-round picks, currently 7 and 8, a second-round pick, currently 37, a 2026 first-round pick tied to the Gold Coast, and a 2027 third-round pick tied to the Gold Coast. So obviously the 2027 one is like very much into the future. You would imagine the 2026 one will be sort of, what do you call it? Probably, yeah. You would imagine they'll be in the top 8. It would be surprising if they didn't back up last year's performance with another finals entrance. So yeah, as I said, so really the biggest ones is the 2 first-round picks this year, picks number 7 and 8. Melbourne losing a lot of experience. They need to stock up on depth. For how rebuilding they were, their depth wasn't that strong last year. They lose Judd McPhee as well. So I think for Melbourne, this probably actually comes at an okay time. It is going to be like very short-term pain for them though.
Yes.
Like, in a vacuum, it's like Petracca on its own, but you like add that with a Clayton Oliver trade, which I think we're talking about in a bit. I don't think that was last week.
Yeah, it's not the next one coming up, but the one after.
Yeah, so as I said, so that is a lot to lose in your midfield. But at the same time, as I said, first rounders tend to be lots of midfields. Like, it's not that hard to rebuild a midfield in the draft unless you're West Coast levels, which I wouldn't even say Melbourne West Coast levels yet. So
No, Melbourne
who
still have some
knows?
fairly good talent floating through their system. It's just about it's all very raw
I
and
still
very
think they're
young.
probably the second worst midfield now, but we'll see. I need to do some analytics before I
I think
claim that. But
I
yeah,
think either way, this is good for the D's, especially because they've got a new coach coming in. He probably wants to do a full restructure anyway, and
yeah,
basically start the rebuild all over again. So this is probably the
yeah,
best. This is probably the only time he's going to be able to really do it until Tasmania starts coming in and taking in most of those picks, which would be the draft after.
yeah. It's one of those things where I think this is not going to be great for Melbourne, but that's more in the losing Christian Petracca. He's been slated to go for years now. You get a big haul for him. Um, and yeah, as I said, it's like a few of the other ones we're going to talk about. For a non-ideal situation, they got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, actually, before I move on to the next one, for the Suns, what does track add to them so much that they don't already have, other than just a
That forward line
huge amount
connection.
of experience?
Took Miller, as good as he was in that half forward line, you know what I mean? It's I don't think I know he kicked the most goals he's ever kicked in a season. I think he's kicked what? I haven't checked. I got a feeling it was 22, something like that.
It was a fair amount. I think it was averaging one a game, give or take. Despite the fact he was
Yeah,
out
yeah.
with injury for quite a few games.
Yeah, as I said, averaging. So 16 goals at 0.7. He did drive a bit at the last half, that's right. But yeah, as I said, so this is more direct goals from Traka.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, stoppage clearances come up because I think he plays as a not pure half forward, but probably not going as much into the midfield. I wouldn't pick him in my fantasy time.
Yeah.
I do think that his role might change a tiny bit, but I think that will open up aspects of his game that are often underrated, and that is how much scoring involvement Christian Petracca can get. Because for a few years, Christian Petracca was up there with Bontempelli, being involved in around 30% of their team scoring involvements. So basically, any scoring chain has a 30% chance of having a Christian Petracca disposal in it. So
yes,
it's pretty good.
It is.
Yeah, to get 30 in one season, you're pretty much approaching elite player, and Christian Petracca has done that in multiple years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair. All right, speaking of the Demons, former St Kilda captain Jack Steele has officially moved to Melbourne for a 2027 third round pick. It is kind of sad that this has kind of happened. One, because he did actually want to stay at St Kilda originally, even though he kind of knew that he was losing his captaincy. He kind of said it himself that he didn't really. I don't want to technically put words in his mouth, but he didn't feel like he was the right person anymore for that kind of role. And there been kind of theories over the past couple of months that maybe it would go to Sinclair or Wilkie or someone of that kind of slightly next step up of caliber player. But yeah, his time at St Kilda is over, and he's officially a Demon.
Yeah, I think the conversation around Steele is very interesting because, I don't actually think that drop off for him this year was enough to be okay, his trade value shot. Because, last year you would say it would be going for a first rounder, wouldn't you say? I know technically it's a bit different, 1 year, but 30 years old, in terms of, I'm just on Wheelos, which is player ratings. His player ratings only, it's as bad as it was, quote unquote, bad as 2019, his 2019 output. He's been so consistent for a long time. Ever since St Kilda, he's never had a player rating below 10. Again, imaginary numbers, but if you can imagine for a midfielder, you'd say 11 and above is you're approaching the better parts
Yeah.
of the AFL list.
Okay.
So, it's like, I honestly think Melbourne's got a bargain here. Like, I know his role wasn't as big, so I think, like, St Kilda were more, I can't say doing a favour, but you know what I mean? It's like, they sort of realised that Jack would walk if they didn't get a deal done. So I don't think they had much leverage. But yeah, as I said, let him play his traditional role, just in the guts, a bit of defensive accountability, and he will. And I think this is good for Jack because you know what I mean? Like sometimes you can be a leader without actually being the captain.
Correct.
And that might be just where that mistake might have been for him. Like it's like, okay, we've got a transitioning midfield. We need someone of your experience. Can you lead us while we rebuild? You don't have to be captain. You've got Captain Gorn there, taking the spotlight. And yeah, as I said, I think this is. I mean, obviously the net negative between Steele and Petracca, but you know what I mean. It's like when you add all these things together. That's what I was saying. Like Melbourne's off season, like not ideal, but they've still got enough to compensate it. It's not like they've been rightly screwed over.
I agree.
So
and a good comparison, just for your point, and saying like you can still be a leader on field without being a captain, is Dion Prestia at Richmond. He's probably our most veteran talent in that midfield right now. And there's been footage of him, I can't remember which game it was, of him like directly guiding our younger players through traffic and open spots and stuff like that. And that's the kind of leadership that you want players to have, even without feeling like they need the captaincy, quote unquote, to do that kind of thing. Yeah,
it's just about having like a clear seniority rank. And as I said, for a team which Melbourne, I think will have to be playing at least one youngster in their midfield core next year. I mean, they technically don't have to. They could put like a lot of makeshifters in. Like, I've also forgotten Kazai Pickett, but like, yeah, their midfield would literally be Jack Steele and a bunch of part-timers if they didn't at least try to put in a younger inside midfielder. I'm not sure who exactly that would be.
We'll have to take a look at that when we do team breakdowns later on.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as I said, yeah, Jack Steele, really good replacement. I think he will be. I think people will be surprised how quickly he gets back onto the level, and I think in retrospect they'll be like, "Oh, why does St Kilda only like give up a third rounder for him?" You know what I mean? Yeah, or get a third rounder, which I meant will be pretty high next year. I think Melbourne will be crap, but who knows?
Who knows?
2027, actually.
Well, speaking of more third rounders, Clayton Oliver is off to the Giants, getting his wish to leave the Melbourne Demons, and in exchange, the Demons received a future third round pick for him. Everyone kind of knew that this was going to end up happening after kind of the crazy 12 months that he's had on a personal level, that he was bound to leave. We didn't know where he was going to go. We know that there were a couple of teams kind of trying to get his talents, but he spent a lot of time at the Giants over like the past couple of weeks during the trade period and before that, and Kingers clearly did a number on him and wooing him over, so that's where he's off to.
Yeah, and this is like a very interesting one. Like, I think, I don't know. For me, it's hard to judge because I said, like, in terms of actual drop off, like this has been a couple of years. So as I said, in terms of like compared to Steele, you're like, oh, there's arguable whether he'll ever get back to his absolute best. It's not like he didn't show forms last year. Even last 2 years, he still recorded like a few coaches votes here and there. While averaging 25 disposals last year. It wasn't terrible.
He still has
impact wasn't there.
He still has huge upside. It's just about getting the best of that out of him.
Yeah, I think actually the biggest worry is that like Carlton's
Giants.
GWS's midfield. I wouldn't exactly call it a barometer of consistency. And then you've got Oliver, who can be very up and down in the last 2 years. Obviously, freakishly consistent in the basically from 2018 to 2023, really.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, as I said. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I know it seems low, but I would actually say this is like more on the level to what I would pay for Clayton Oliver. I do know that he'll get on the upside, but I'm just not sure about the fit for GWS. Melbourne, I know third round pick isn't that much, but you know, as I said, I don't think Oliver was going to get that much. In fact, I think isn't his contract up next year? Because I think when he was all that thing, he only signed a 2-year deal. So
I can't remember. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll quickly look that up. But yeah, as I said,
I think part of this is also to cover Josh Kelly's role, since he won't be playing for most of 2026 due to having surgery. So they'll be able to kind of shift a player into his position, and Clayton will probably go back into the guts of the midfield. I know part of this deal was also because he just wanted to get out of Melbourne. I completely understand that.
yeah.
But yeah, whether he's the right fit for the Giants midfield, that will remain to be seen. Again, I think when you look at a player like Cogs, who probably only has like 1 year, give or take, left to go until his body starts to give out on him as well, because he's really pushing that veteran clock.
Yeah.
You know, you have a player like Oliver who can kind of slot into his position as well if need be. So it'll be about some moving pieces, I think, for that midfield.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot. Like, no, he signed that mega deal. That's right, because it was very weird at the time. He's actually unrestricted until. Oh, sorry. He becomes a UFA at the end of 2030.
Yes, that's right. It was a mega deal, wasn't it? And that's why Melbourne is still paying part of his contract for this trade.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, I imagine they would need to. This is a massive salary cap dump as well, so yeah, I think the bigger error for Melbourne was signing him onto such a big deal when he just seemed a bit flaky.
Track was kind of in a similar position, but I don't think he was on as big of a deal as Oliver was or is.
Yeah, I think Track was more like Track. I think you could sign him and like anyone would want him, which is like as seen by the return.
Yes,
but yeah, as I said, I don't think Oliver ever had that pulling power. He still might come good for GWS. I don't know. If I was GWS, I wouldn't exactly target Clayton or Oliver, even though their midfield needs a bit of a boost. He just doesn't quite seem that fit. Like, I just don't. Because Clayton Oliver's a bit of a dump kicker. Like, they already have enough, like.
It's hard to really judge it at the moment, I feel like.
Like, you're going to have a midfield of Finn Callaghan, Tom Green, who, you know, is more going to be the pill getter, and then Clayton Oliver. The three of those I would describe as, like, more likely to dump the ball than exactly, like, work it out.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit skeptical, but yeah, I don't rate this trade all that highly for GWS, and Melbourne are just like sort of stepping back on their errors.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird, but it remains to be seen as to how GWS can get the best out of him still. But that's enough of that. Time to move on to the last big trade of the trade period, and that is the Charlie Curnow trade, of course. He's officially left Carlton, moving up to Sydney, and surprisingly, they got a pretty big haul for it, and that actually went through. I'm surprised that they actually let this one through, to be honest, because of just how down to the wire they left this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can imagine. I don't think Sydney will have huge regrets, but like.
No,
man, all it takes is one injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the risk is a little high here because he has had injury concerns over the past couple of years. But you look at their forward line, and it's way too inconsistent. They needed someone with that little bit more consistency, and he does offer that plenty. He offers a ton of that.
Yeah, because I said like, and another sliding doors moment is like, remember 2 years ago when it was like, Fremantle like should pay half the farm for Tom McDonald, not Tom McDonald, um, what's the one that plays for Sydney? The forward McDonald. Um, anyway,
Sure,
he's
sure
always
it's not
injured
Tom
now.
McDonald? I can't remember.
That could be Tom McDonald. Um, anyway, so yeah, as I said, so yeah, key forwards, honestly, more trouble than they're worth. Nah, I'm joking. Nah, as I said, like honestly, I think the biggest bit of this deal is Will Hayward to Carlton.
Yeah.
Like the picks, like
I think the
yeah,
picks you could
fine, like they
give
can
or
turn
take.
into, but you're getting Curnow, but you're also sacrificing one of your best avenues to goals that actually existed in your forward line. And granted, they're still banking on Papley being good for next year.
Yes.
But man, I feel like, like when you think of it, like, I mean, just even take, I mean, obviously Will Hayward scored more goals than Charlie Curnow in 2025.
Mhm.
Not in 2022. He probably wouldn't have, think he won the Coleman that year, but,
Yeah, I think so actually.
yeah, yeah, Hayward, honestly, as I said, like, well, I'm just going to look at his last 29 goals last year.
He was also injured for
for
part of
his
that year as well.
No, not really. 21 games. 41 years the year before in 2024. Hasn't dropped below 20 in only 2 years. He dropped below 20, and one of those was COVID effective. The other one was injury.
Yep.
So, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, yeah, like you're having to bank on Charlie Curnow kicking about. I mean, you'd want him to kick 45 at least before I even think about, I think he needs at least 2 or 3 years of 45 before I think that Sydney's come out of this trade well,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, is more than possible, but it only takes one injury to derail that. And as I said, Carlton, obviously, they get a crafty small forward, which they really, well, not even small, like a utility forward.
It's a
Which they
mid-sized
really
utility
needed.
forward, which they definitely needed.
They got picks for the future. They're also spread out a bit, which I actually rate because I don't think they really need immediate, like, young talent. But I think they'll be patching their holes as they go, which I think they've already done this year when we look at the delistings. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, as I said, I honestly think that this is the biggest. Like, I think because the stakes are so high in this race, it's unfair to say, like, Carlton's are, like, the biggest receivers because they also gave up a lot. It's just, like, they have the potential to, like, swindle Sydney. But at the same time, I don't think they care. Like, whatever Curnow does at Carlton, whatever Curnow does at Sydney is, like, irrelevant to them because they're going in a different direction. This makes sense. Again, it's about rebuilding and not being uber terrible. When you get that cycle of, okay, we can't develop players because there's no structure, which is what they're trying to avoid. And I think Will Hayward is a very versatile and good player to be picking up. I really rate this pickup.
Yeah.
As I said, if, even like if they had a fringe player that they in this trade, like even just say like someone of Jack Buller nature, you know what I mean? I'll be like, okay, this is like, okay, they still come out of this fine. But Will Hayward just elevates that to like, man, this is a really good deal no matter what.
Yeah, I think Carlton, as much as Carlton didn't want to trade Curnow away, they wanted to very much keep him. I think they actually did end up winning out overall in this trade. And especially because they've got plans for the future now, and they've also got a really talented player to boost the issues, to help fix the issues that they have between their midfield and their forward line.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it sort of brings us to something we'll just lightly point out. And I'll say it's 3 major non-trades, unless you thought of anything, which was Zach Merrett not going to Hawthorn / any other club, Rowan Marshal not going to Geelong, and Jye Simpkin not going to wherever he was slated to go to.
The fourth one I was going to bring up is the Lek Aleer move. The one that he was originally meant to go to St Kilda. And then St Kilda backed out. and he ended up accepting the GWS 2-year deal.
Yeah, I think this is just gonna be one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I've never, not that I haven't rated him as a defender because he's had some really good games, but I don't know. It's a bit of an awkward fit for some clubs. Yeah, I guess it depends on what he was wanting the next contract extension, because I guess you get talked about that when you're looking at the trades, and he decided that being a role player for GWS, who admittedly, like, for as good as, like, they're a bit like Carlton, but like better, but also not. In where their defense on paper was fantastic, but they actually gave up a lot of points.
Yeah, they did.
So you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I don't know. But as I said, Lek Aleer, I was a bit surprised he didn't, like, even the Bulldogs, I know that they ended up getting Budarick, which I think is a better option, because obviously they have Buku Karmas playing a similar role as sort of that more faster intercepting player, more of halfback. But yeah, as I said, I don't know. Maybe it's just one matter of like waiting to see which team picks him up. That's a bit of a better fit. I can't really see a team like in desperate need of like that halfback interceptor, a bit athletic, maybe, okay enough defensively, but not the biggest ball user. I don't know.
It'll be interesting. It'll
So
be
yeah,
interesting to see where some of the delistings may end up, because there's definitely still some openings for some of them in some lists, but it'll just be a really interesting. We'll touch on that in a moment. But yeah, the Jye Simpkin one is interesting because I don't think it was an entirely like a want to be traded. He just wants to be played in his actual role, and he's not getting that currently at North.
Yeah, and as I said, he made a really nice post actually. It's like, yay, as I said, I talked about it with the club, exploring options, and obviously, I mean, I don't know if they've made a decision on captaincy, but you would be surprised if he was captain next year. Like once you ask, I think that's when you got to look at a club and it's like, you've also got a bit of a responsibility in making sure the captain isn't bearing too much of a load.
Yeah.
And I know it's not like, oh, you have to cater to every whims, but you know what I mean? It's like, I think it's a bit concerning that I think, he's lost a bit of love for football whilst also, being the, I mean, because it happens.
It does.
Like, like there's no, people are not weird, but, emotions are very fickle. What seems, and especially like in a months long AFL season, what seems permanent and set in stone can often change for an off season. So he made a post about it. He said he's devoted to give the best that he can for North Melbourne in any capacity possible. And honestly, I believe that. I think Simpkin, he might eventually be traded. I wouldn't be surprised if, when the alright offer comes around, he'll probably head off. But yeah, as I said, I don't think this is going to be as. This is the least controversial of the captains leaving, which is a bit of a surprise.
I've always found Simpkin to be one of those players who very much wears his heart on his sleeve, who very much loves and cares deeply for the players, more so than like the game itself. And I think that contributes a lot as to why he's still willing to give so much to North, despite the fact that he may feel wronged in some aspects. By the coaching decisions or whatever it may be. Especially when you're the captain of such a young club, or a young club in terms of player list. You got to kind of just bear with it and kind of stick it out a little bit and just see where hopefully like following season will be much better for you.
Because it's very hard, like, like people say, oh, he's 27, he should be mature, but like this is the first season where it's like probably like you can't play where you know what I mean? Like it's one of those like weird luxuries you have when you're really good, really young, but you can just play where you want to. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? You're forcing me to play a position because like you don't value like, when you're good, you can just play what you think's your best position because no matter where else you could be, like you in your spot is just going to contribute. But I don't think Jye has that power anymore. And, as I said, his numbers last year, like I know it was very awkward, but were pretty So
Yeah, they weren't the greatest compared to his numbers in like 23 or 22.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he still had disposal even, but North fans will tell you like he was one of the contributors for the gets the ball but doesn't quite do enough with it. So yeah, as I said, hopefully, an off season's a long time in football. This could probably be seen as a bit of an aberration. And he might return to a bit of form, but yeah, as I said, um, yeah, Jye Simpkin is just like one of those players that, like, his pickable in the best 22 is just, yeah, I don't think he demand, like, and it's going to be very harsh, is like, he doesn't have the talent to be, like, dictating his own terms, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is very harsh. Like, I only think a few players in the AFL do get that opportunity. But you know what I mean? He's, like, sort of on that cusp. Like, he's a very A- level player. Maybe B+ if you're being harsh, but at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, because of that, you got to allow him to explore a bit and be like, hey, I think I can begin more of my career in players, a club that's willing to play me where I think I'll be the best. So I don't have any qualms about him exploring that. I think, yeah, I mean, even 2024 wasn't really that great for Simpkin. So, yeah, as I said, 2 years, bit out of form. You want to continue on to a more positive trajectory, like you sort of started with the earlier parts of their season. So, it's his career. So, yeah, as I said, didn't happen. I think, as I said, they'll explore until they can find one, or we'll just see next year. If he picks up, maybe we'll just all forget about it.
Essentially, the next one being the Rowan Marshal trade, St Kilda deciding that he is not leaving and is staying put. Will that mean that they're going to potentially run a dual ruck setup with him and TDK? Or is it going to be more the fact that he just becomes depth and TDK becomes the number one?
I don't know. It's hard to see. Like I said, St Kilda's forward line is still a bit of a mess. I mean, like, when I say that, is like, I can see it being okay. It's just I need to see, like, the first 7 games of the season before I believe it.
Yeah.
And currently I'm at not believing. Again, draft, preseason, all can change that. But yeah, it's a very interesting one. I think Marshall definitely would have benefited for a trade. I don't see how he would get that much trade value. Coming off a pretty bad year, a bit older. I just think this is like more of a no-win situation for Marshall. And I think the Saints are like, well, is what, a couple of years left on his contract. We're probably still going to need a 29-year-old ruckman. Like, TDK is not going to go on his own. Max Keeler, maybe in the next couple of years, might develop into like a backup ruckman that can play forward. But I think St Kilda are like, yeah, we're more than willing just to put you as a makeshift forward that can sometimes tap it, support SDK, whilst other people develop. It just sucks for Marshall's career, probably.
Yeah, it's not the greatest of situations to be in right now for him, especially because it's no unless like the 2026 dream has been sold to him by the club and by Ross the boss as to how they want to structure. Yeah, you can't really kind of see where a future may be for Rowan Marshall at the moment. But otherwise, there isn't really too much.
People like say, oh, he's a part-time goal kicker, but it's only like his max goals kick per season is 15.
Yeah.
And he's not known for that being accurate. Like, he's got one, like 13-11 in 2020, which, yeah, probably a 50-50 kicker at best. Like, when you realize that a lot of ruckmen get goal scare quicks, like, it's pretty inaccurate, considering like a lot of ruck goals are fairly gimmies. So, yeah, I don't see him as like a big marking forward type backup ruckman. I just think the Saints are going to be accepting that they're not going to have the best value out of his production, but still need him.
Yeah.
Which is very awkward for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. And then the last one, and the reason why this episode is titled the way that it is the Zach Merrett trade. Are the Bombers stupid to not take Hawthorn's offer of whatever they were offering for him? Or especially after all of kind of the quote-unquote tarnishment that kind of happened over the past couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I'll say this straight. Like, there is no way that Essendon will get as good an offer as they did from Hawthorn for Zach Merrett in future years.
Facts.
I just can't really see it happening.
No, I can't either.
Is it worth Zach Merrett, like, that trade? I mean, arguably you could say, okay, it's a big player. You want someone a bit more. Maybe that you could say, like, okay, you like sacrifice a bit of the draft pick to get like a more solid mid-level player, like, you know, obviously it wouldn't be James Walker. Like, he's still a bit young. I don't know.
It's hard. It's
I don't know, like
the way that I see
like
it.
not literally the player, but like maybe you could argue they would want someone like on a Connor McDonald level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of draft picks and a player that's, you know, they had their eye on. Like, I don't know too much about Hustwaite, but like, yeah, as I said, honestly, that being said though, like, I don't hate the fact that Essendon just didn't take the deal. Like, I think, because I don't think this is a win situation for Essendon. Like, Essendon just can't win in this situation. Like, one of their best players and captain wants to leave. They want to trade it to. I mean, Hawthorn are technically a rival club to them.
Yes.
Like, it's not like they exactly have the most friendly history in the
I think
entirety.
the way that the Bombers were mostly kind of looking at this, apart from the fact that he's a contracted captain and they're trying to keep him to that contract, is the fact that he's basically the only key piece that Hawthorn need to make a proper premiership tilt. Because you
could still argue their forward line,
I mean,
but
yeah,
I mean, like, it's true.
You look at what Hawthorn have, and the fact that they made a prelim this year.
That would be like Geelong level of like list evenness. Like, yeah, sure, Geelong's forward half is much better than their back line, but like all three lines are still acceptable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We
two lines are really good.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the final series. Is that like what Hawthorn are kind of missing is just that extra piece in their midfield, because that's where they were beaten during in that prelim.
Yeah, well, they were smacked by I think it was the Cats, wasn't it?
Yes, it was the Cats. And Merrett pretty much offers exactly what they need, and that's why they were going so hard for him. And obviously the conversations that they had prior, Sam Mitchell, Merrett, whatever. But the fact that Essendon are also in a position where they still don't really have any chance of playing finals with the list that they currently have, and being able to get a fairly decent player who has played a couple of somewhat good games but hasn't entirely proven himself, and then a huge draft hand to prepare for your future and make a proper premiership tilt after 20 something years. Like, it feels kind of stupid to not take that and prepare for what's coming up, because Tasmania are going to take most of those good players when they officially come in for that draft. And the options are going to be a lot more limited, especially when there's also going to be players from other clubs that probably want to be traded to Tasmania and be part of that starting generation. That's why a lot of players currently have contracts only to 2028, for an example. We've got a couple of players ourselves that are contracted for only another year or two because they're Tasmanian. Maybe they want to go back home and play for, the club that's going to represent their state, that sort of thing. It's why I find it really weird that Essendon. I get why Essendon said no, but I also find it really weird that they said no.
I think it's just one of those things where it's like, where would you draw the line? And I do actually think that this is like a fairly reasonable time to draw the line, because again, an off season is a long time in football. All it takes is like a surprising. Like, if they get, with all their players back and, some of them, if they get, like, 3 or 4 wins early on, like, honestly, Zach Merrett will probably be playing. He'll probably be averaging, like, and you know what I mean? Like,
Zach Merrett will just do what Zach Merrett does. It's pretty much all that he did this year.
Yeah, and it's like they'll have like a production out of him. Like this, like I don't like this isn't the NFL. Like he's not going to sit on the sidelines
No,
just because he doesn't
no,
like
he's
he
easily their
nearly
best player
has or
still.
whatever. Yeah, it's just A, like how does Merrett react? And B, I think the onus is on the Bombers to back this up with other like strong decisions. Like they can't just be strong on Merrett
Yeah,
and then like buckle in other areas. Like this is a like if you're gonna make this a line in the sand moment, and like there's no way Essendon can win this. Like as I said, it's just a bad situation to be in. But you can at least take the worst bits of it and like set that as like, okay, this is who we are, this is how we're going to deal with things. And you know, as I said, if we can be like big enough to, you know, put this behind us, work out how to incorporate Zach Merrett into the list next year and not let this be a distraction, whilst also, you know, again, try not to bottom out, really, because like last year was as bad as it could probably happen injury wise, and they still, you know, they were bottom four, but they weren't last.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's not like they're knocking on the doors of disaster. I mean, yeah, their backline is screwed. Like that's a bigger problem than Zach Merrett will ever be.
true.
The fact that yeah, so I don't mind it. It's just you're not going to get any return ever. Well, not ever, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, you're not ever going to get a bigger deal as this. So if it goes south next year, that will have just flat out lost.
Yeah.
And B, yeah, as I said, even if it does go, like, you know, the ceiling is just like playing with Zach Merrett in your side, and they've done that and still been mediocre.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah,
as I said,
it's a big call.
I can see why people say it's stupid for them not to, but I still think that this is a moment where, as I said, like, as long as you're consistent, like, this isn't going to be like one of the worst trade histories moments for Essendon. Like, they can get past this. It's just, it needs more backbone than Essendon normally provide in any given situation.
Oh yeah, big agree. And just to like kind of like finish it off there, like they still had despite all of their injuries that they had this season. We spoke about it at length. They had a lot of very, very spirited games where they were very much in it right up until like the final quarter. They had a ton of games like that, so that we know that they have, like, they still have the talent. And granted, a lot of the work does come from Merrett himself, but they still have a lot of fairly good talent that they're building around. They've brought in a couple of players. Obviously, they've lost a couple of players as well. That kind of, you know, that'll be remain to be seen. We'll talk about that in a moment. But it's just about what can they do now, and where does the whole situation end up leading to, which was literally our entire point.
Yeah. And let's face it, like, they were one win away from Melbourne, who had Petracca, Oliver, Viney in their midfield. You know what I'm saying? It's like, people go on about midfielders, but midfielders don't technically win you games or premierships. Like, I know it's great to have them, but you know what I mean? Like, one midfielder in the scheme of things isn't as important as people think.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's like, it sort of goes two ways. Is A, they could have got a really big haul for them whilst they chose to retool a bit. But B, as I said, they've got to be like, okay, we're keeping Merrett, but we've also got to make sure our structures are sound. So like, he doesn't really hate staying on. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make this hell for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it is funny that he's sort of staying. Like, don't get me wrong, there is a weird sort of football-related humor to this, but yeah, as I said, I do literally. I don't like the way Merrett's gone about it. To be honest, like, AFL is like one of the weirdest things where it's like, you'd think like a left-leaning person like me would be like, oh, player agency, like all the players. Whereas like, it feels like the clubs are sort of the ones that need protecting at times. Like, players have a lot of power, and I like it, but I think Merrett's just, yeah, as I said, I think we're getting to the point where players have sort of got a bit too much power. And yeah, as I said, I'm sort of glad for the culture of football that they still got knocked back.
Yeah, that's very fair. All right, we're going to quickly run down the delistings, retirees, and trade/free agency moments that happened now that the trade period is officially closed. Some teams are still doing a couple of delistings. For example, there were 2 from the Bombers announced today that we will obviously touch on. But this is going to be just a very quick run through just to kind of give us an idea of where every team is currently at before the draft period. So we'll start with the Crows, with Chris Burgess delisted, Matt Crouch retiring, Carl Gallagher delisted, Lachlan Murphy delisted, Harry Schuenberg delisted, Brody Smith retiring, and Kieran Strawn delisted.
Yeah, so a lot of outside and halfback on that one. For Brisbane, we've got Darcy Craven dislisted, Sam Day retired, Oscar McInerney retired, Devon Robinson delisted, Brandon Ryan delisted, and Brandon Starcevich traded.
Yes. So obviously a veteran, one who struggled a lot with injury just to try and get on the park. Devon Robertson, probably the biggest delisting out of the 3 because we know he's had some higher up talent.
Meant to be picked up in the West.
I assume he'll probably find a home during this off season, whether he takes like an SSP spot on a list somewhere or something like that. I think he's one of those players that will definitely come back.
He'll be silly enough to look at him.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously Starcevich over to the Eagles. For Carlton, Alex Changkout was delisted, Charlie Curnow traded, Tom de Koning free agency, Sam Doherty retired, Corey Durden traded, Orazio Fantasia delisted, Harry Lemmy delisted, and Jack Silvani free agency.
Yeah, so obviously a lot bigger on the trading than actually delisting. Obviously Fantasia and Doherty were probably the biggest names of the natural ones. And as I said, it's more just like, how do you replace some of the star power you've lost when you're already sort of a struggling side? But yeah, I said, I think with the delistings, with the add-ins, I think it's certain that Carlton will be some form of rebuilding next year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where they're slowly leaning towards, especially when they've lost kind of key positions across the board, really.
Exactly. All right, for Collingwood, they've lost Mason Cox, Charlie Dean. Sorry, both Mason Cox and Charlie Dean were delisted. Will Hoskin Elliott retired. Ash Johnson delisted. Finn McRae delisted. Oleg Markov delisted. Brody Myercheck traded. And Tom Mitchell delisted. So a lot of veteran talent. Surprisingly, a few key players. I know Charlie Dean struggled to make his way into a very tall back line. But on the forward end, yeah, as I said, they don't have much depth up forward, and they lose Johnson, Cox, and obviously trading. Hoskin Elliott retiring and trading Myercheck. I know Hoskin Elliott didn't really play forward that much. I think he played off halfback during the end of his career. Not a real player.
He's kind of much like a floating kind of player. I think because of some of their injuries, he ended up kind of just filling a couple of holes. Which, I mean, credit to his talent, but the body just couldn't keep up anymore on that regard.
Yeah, so as I said, so very interesting considering they were very high on the ladder. Like I said, everyone's like, Collingwood's back, but there's also got the precipice of the cliff. I don't think
the Mason Cox one is all that surprising, to be honest.
Oh no, none of them are surprising. It's just,
but the Tom Mitchell one is the one that surprises me a little bit more because he's a Brownlow medal winner, and
I think he's past it. Yeah, I think Mitchell they have midfield depth. So
but I don't know. Could have been a bit of trade bait. He still has a little bit left, but
he's taking Mitch. Nah, Mitchell's done.
He's
just living in 2018 fantasy mode.
One player I hope gives it one more shot is Markov. I have a big soft spot for Markov. I love Markov.
Yeah.
Hopefully he finds another home. Coming back to Richmond would be nice. Come back to your first club, please. But otherwise, I hope if he does end up just calling it and retiring, I hope he's pretty happy with the career that he's had. I mean, became a premiership player, so you can't fault him for that at all. And got to play some fairly solid games for 3 pretty good clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, jumping over to the Bombers now. And starting from the top, we've got Alwyn Davey Jr. delisted, Sam Draper gone by free agency, Todd Goldstein delisted. He'll probably end up retiring overall. Ben Hobbs was announced today as a delisting. Jaden Laverde delisted. Luaman Lawal was also announced today as a delisting. Jye Menzies delisted, Dylan Shield delisted, and Oscar Smart delisted.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one because we mentioned before, they had so many mid-seasons that they were going to have to make some harsh calls on the delisting because there are players that are invested into this season. Luam and Luau being the biggest one. Jye Menzie, you know what I mean? Like, he never quite eventuated coming from the Giants, but you know, as I said, that's depth there. Dylan Shield, another bit of depth. So again, like, you know, and this is the thing about, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you trade off Merrett. Is like they have not that much left in that midfield stocks. And tall stocks and defending stocks.
Well, we
yeah,
knew that they were going to have to get rid of a bunch of players because of the extra players they had to pick up because of a couple of their injuries. But when you look at it like this, and I guess I'm kind of going to circle back briefly to the whole Merrett thing, is that like, could you have used some of those extra picks at this point in time, just purely, again, in case of another injury disaster? But, you know, that's a remains to be seen at this point as to whether that...
Oh, list spots are list spots. Like, they say the same for each team, so I don't think that big a deal. Plus, I said, like, you're like, oh, some of these players. But they did keep, like, a lot of players, like Blackiston. Oh, who was that forward that did really well from WA? Anyway, a lot of other players.
Yeah, there are a couple of players that they did pick up through mid-season, etc. That they have kept that are going to be serviceable for them quite well. So we'll see how that goes. But on to Fremantle next.
Right. Did I? Okay, yeah, no, I'm doing Fremantle. Sorry, I was just brain firing. We have James H retired, Will Brodie traded, Jack Deline delisted, Nat Fife retired, Odin Jones delisted, Quintal Narkle retired, Liam Reedy traded, Michael Walters retired. Really, not that much change down in Fremantle. Just a tiny bit of outside veteran depth lost, I would say.
I'd say so.
But they've got some players coming up. I don't think anything from this will heavily affect their output from next year. The only thing I would say is a couple of the tolls like Odin Jones and Liam Reedy, they probably wanted maybe a bit more out of. Both project players, but never eventuated. I don't know too much about Jack Deline, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd kind of say the same thing. Like, Fife, we knew that was coming. Michael Walters, we probably knew that was coming as well. Quentin Knuckle just couldn't break into any best 22 side and decided, you know, 3 teams is enough. James H probably could have tried to get a little bit more out of him, but if the body can't keep up, body can't keep up.
Yeah, I think they need to move on from H. They need to move on to their wing strategy in general, to be honest. But
Liam Reedy being traded again, young, and Will Brodie as well. These are young project players that just they couldn't get the time into.
Yeah.
And then
I think Reedy, if he does go into like a really good ruckman, I think Freo fans will just crawl into a bowl and cry. It's like, why do they always develop after they're gone? But yeah,
I mean, when you look at the two that you currently have, that they currently have at the moment, that are superstars, essentially, like you can't fault them too much for not being able to break in.
Yeah, they just trade Reedy because it's like proven this year that Voss can back up ruck, really.
Yeah. All right, jumping over to Geelong now, and thankfully it is a short list with Mitch Duncan retiring. Cam Guthrie delisted. I believe this was announced earlier this morning or it was yesterday.
Yes.
Xavier Ivsic delisted and Patrick Retschko traded to Richmond.
Yeah, again, not too much. All the players that were, changed, honestly, weren't playing much anyway. Duncan and Guthrie, very good servants of the club. Obviously, we talked about Duncan a bit earlier. Cam Guthrie, he might end up on a list. I doubt it.
I doubt it too. Purely because he's just been riddled with injury this season. His body's. I don't think his body's going to be able to keep up with the game anymore. He might be like a player coach, maybe if he's able to get on the list. Otherwise, I think it'll be a retirement at the end.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So, so again, much like Fremantle, not going to be much that changes their outlook. Talking about sort of, worthy to talk about the Gold Coast because they did get some big pulls, but they also made a lot of off-season moves and delisting.
Yes.
The Gold Coast got rid of Baines Ames Ben Ainsworth by a trade, Tom Berry via delisting, Connor Budarick by a trade, Braydon Fiorini by a trade, Sam Flanders by a trade, Lloyd Johnston, the backflip king, unfortunately delisted, Sam Lemmings retired, Malcolm Roses Jr. traded, Alex Sexton delisted, and David Swallow retiring. So, yeah, as I said, honestly, like, this had to happen. Like, Gold Coast had so many mid-level players that had played a lot of games but not quite, really found permanent spots on their team.
Yeah.
So I think this is a list move that was way overdue. Now that they've won that finals, they're like, okay, we can sort of shed a bit of skin to like try and propel this team even further. So, but I think the important thing to note is probably that forward and midfield depth is now just that tiny bit flakier.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the fact that a lot of these are by trades as well. It does tell us that the Suns are still looking for the future. Again, they got a lot of fairly decent draft picks out of these. Granted, most of those ended up being used on Petracca. But
Yeah.
there was one on Ugelhagen, of course. But besides that, they're still very much planning ahead and planning very well. Dimmer is very good at working with these list managers on these sorts of things. Again, he did it at Richmond. So I know he knows what he's doing, and I do trust that process. But yeah, a lot of if Gold Coast comes under a huge injury cloud in 2026, it might kick them that they got rid of so much talent, especially a lot of growing talent specifically.
You have
But
to at some point, though.
yeah, that's the hard
You
part.
can't just hold on to your depth forever.
Correct. That's
It's
the
just
hard part of
like
the business.
if there is going to be a second year, like if you're going to pick a team, like yeah, I could see this team like dipping. It would be the Gold Coast, and it would be unfortunate, but they had a pretty good run
I
last
can't
year.
remember if I said this last week or I was talking to someone else about it. But I don't expect. Oh no, I was talking to my cousin about this. Yesterday. I don't expect the Suns to make top 8 in 2026. Like they may have another like brief dip. But I expect them in 2027 to very much be making a premiership tilt.
Yeah, I think their trajectory is fine, which is the main thing. I don't think next year's vital for them, but it's like, well, if they're healthy, they'll have another crack at it. And I personally think only a bad injury year would probably mean I would not expect them to. But as I said, you never know. There's a bit of variability with the Suns.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that in the preseason.
Yeah, like just for an example, like I could see them maybe finishing 9th or 10th just purely on like percentage or something like that. Like
yeah, I could,
but we'll take a look at that later on.
Come on, Blaze! It's one season where we can be optimistic about the Suns, and now you're bringing it down again. Normally, I'm the Suns hater.
True.
Now you've taken over.
Normally, I'm a little more up on North than the Suns, but anyway, we're gonna move over to GWS now, and again, a short little bit of movement. Only 5 players currently on the list, with Wade Dirksen delisted. That actually happened today. Josh Fahey delisted, Lockie Keefe retiring, Kellen Ward retiring, and Jacob were moving over via the free agency.
Yeah, the ones out of the control were well, I guess Keefe wasn't out of control, but you know what I mean. Yeah, as I said, Ward sucks, but eventually they'll have to move on. Where, as I said,
well, he's got a port, so you're a bit happy with that.
Yeah, well, as I said, he's sort of like struggling on that to break into that back line, which has obviously got what Ash and Whitfield, who again I don't think Whitfield's ever as good as some people claim he is, but he is one of the damn most consistent halfback pill rackers up.
He did have
you know what I mean?
A fairly good season, so it's very hard to break.
Oh yeah. Like him and Ash, I think he's actually been better now that Ash has sort of picked up. But
agreed.
That's neither here or there. So that's why I said I don't think Ware's going to make much difference. Fahey, again, outside player that never really cracked it. They have some outside depth problem, but Fahey never was fixing it anyway.
Yeah. Not too much here. Again, the Giants, they're still in a good position. They still have a lot of very good depth that they're working on. But it's just, it's unlucky that Callan Ward went out the way that he did. We all miss him already, exactly. But it'll hopefully be good signs for the Giants.
Yeah.
But let's move over to Hawthorn.
Yeah, short but very interesting list changes. Luke Bruce retired, Sam Frost delisted, Changkout Jiath traded, Jasper Seif delisted. I don't
think
know,
it's
maybe it's
Scaife.
Scaife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I did misread that. Jye Serong traded and James Warple in free agency. So big depth players, but I think Hawthorn are edging to the point where they don't necessarily need any of those. Jiath and Serong definitely not. Warple probably is, well, you're probably just going to do best by him and let him go. Like, you
Yeah.
weren't going to pay him all that much. Sam Frost also, too. Like, it's whatever. And Bruce, again, yeah, like, they're forward. Like, as I said, it is meaning that they're going to have to rely on Gunston and Chol to have reasonable years, but again, they're going to be doing that until they develop another forward, really.
And now that
wherever that comes
now
from.
that they have all of these picks, because the Merrett trade never went through, they can actually use them
Yeah.
for
Honestly,
for
like,
a bit of
if there's a
solid
key
high tower
forward,
depth.
yeah, if there's a key forward that slips down to, what is it? Their first one's 9 or 10?
10 is their
I
first
think
one.
9. 10, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a key forward available at 10, I think they just pick a Melbourne-based key forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
They have pretty good options here.
As I said, yeah, their backline depth is just like gone from ridiculous to like league standard now. That's the biggest change.
The only one on this list I definitely see. Well, granted, there's only 2 delistings. Like, I still see Sam Frost maybe popping up somewhere.
Oh yeah, I want to see a Sam Frost outline with him in every club's jumper. I need to see.
I want Frostball at all 18 clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's jump over to Melbourne now, and they've got a fairly substantial list of players they have lost. So, former St Kilda player Jack Billings was delisted. Kynan Brown delisted. Tom Fullerton delisted. Marty Haw delisted. Judd McVie was traded. Clayton Oliver traded. Christopher Petracca traded. Oliver Seston delisted. Charlie Spargo moved to North Melbourne via free agency. Will Verrill delisted. And Taj Woden, a family name at the Melbourne Football Club, delisted.
Yeah, there's a few interesting ones in this. You know, as I said, Kynan Brown, they put a tiny bit of time into. Haw played a few games as a defender, but like, well, I'm not surprised he's gone. It's like, well, your other defenders are getting older. It's like, it's a bit nerve-wracking. It's like, well, you better hope that the next best one will come good. I'm not sure really who they've got back there. It's probably a name I'm forgetting, but yeah, I would say, I mean, I won't say it's like concerning, but at the same time, it's like, man, a few players are going to have to step up next year for Melbourne not to be in the doldrums.
Well, I mean, you're bringing in a new coach. You know, going to be a new game plan, new structure. May as well start trying to implement that now and basically go into a rebuild, like a proper rebuild, instead of whatever they were trying to do post 21.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, as I said, I think, well, we already mentioned it, it's like Melbourne had the capacity to like compete last year and they went. Like, we'll talk about it again, wrap up. Like, they lost some pretty close games. It's not like they were that far off the mark.
No, like,
and yet they were pretty far off the mark.
They had some fairly spirited games and just slightly got off the mark in like the fourth quarter, that kind of thing. So like,
yeah, well, Melbourne had a percentage of 93.3. Like that normal, like a team that finishes that low, loses a few close matches. Like you normally pick them to go up the ladder, but yeah, I don't see that happening with this. It's just, you know,
no, not right now, definitely not.
I think there's just like a decision, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna have to make with all these trades, we're gonna have to make some decisions on our depth, and I think they're gonna like reshuffle a lot of young players.
Yeah, agreed.
Which is fair. I don't think they've developed that great. So,
speaking of Melbourne, time to go north to North Melbourne.
Yes. So the delistings are Miller Bergman is delisted, Kellen Dawson delisted, Eddie Ford delisted, Bryn Teakle delisted, and Finnbar Maley traded as talked about earlier.
Yes.
A bit of back depth and a bit of forward depth. It's interesting. I don't think any of these are like required players. I think again, someone like a Bergman probably upset that they didn't develop a bit more. Maybe same with Dawson. I can't remember if he was a high draft pick. And
I don't remember
yeah,
at all for Dawson. I know that for Eddie Ford and Bryn Teagle, they gave them so much time and just never got to where they wanted them to be. Granted, North Melbourne as a whole didn't really
Tika
get
was
to where they
injured a
wanted
bit
to
more,
be. But
yeah, Ford definitely is like one of those players where I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, Brent Teagle, I said, you could argue injury like probably prevented him from being super utilized, but like, yeah, as I said, they have other options.
All right. For the next two, do we want to do each other's teams or do we want to switch it up and you do Port and I'll do Richmond?
I guess we'll do our own. Port Adelaide, Rory Atkins retired. The legend Travis Boak retired. Ryan Burton was delisted. Lockie Charlson delisted. Jeremy Finlayson delisted. Hugh Jackson delisted. Jed McEntee delisted. Willie Rioli Jr. retired. And Dill Williams delisted. So, halfback depth. Dill Williams, probably one of those ones where he had a pretty bad last season, but I felt like in other seasons he wasn't utilized as much, so he might get another tester. Honestly, Jed McEntee to Carlton would be funny just because sort of following the same footsteps as what's his name that plays now? Francis Evans.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny actually.
But yeah, everything else is pretty stock standard. This is just cutting the list depth a bit. Didn't lose anyone that's like too important, except for probably Willie Rioli. I mean, you could argue Travis Boak, but I think they were sort of planning for him to.
That was always probably going to happen this season.
Exactly. I mean, as I said, Bergman and Burgoyne both can probably do a bit, as well as Stopgap Ware as well if we need to.
Yeah.
It's just the small forward output of Willie Rioli Jr. That's the biggest thing here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Port, absolutely atrocious at ground level. But have some players there that they're hoping that build into good players in who's the one from Collingwood? Joe Richards and Joe Berry.
Yes. All right, for Richmond's list, we've got 5 delistings and a trade. Jacob Bauer delisted, Jacob Blight delisted. That's the one I'm probably the most annoyed about. I will be honest with you. We'll go into that in a sec. Make Lena delisted, Jacob Kaczynski delisted, Campton McIntosh delisted, although he's probably just going to end up retiring. We shall see when the SSP and stuff comes up. And Tyler Young traded, which I'm very sad about. But he's good. He's
Is this the most Jacobs delist? Oh, sorry.
Probably it's probably the most Jacobs delisted in one go. Yes,
delisted in one go. Yeah.
Okay. So
sorry, I didn't realize the second part.
Yeah, the Bauer, I kind of expected. He had some good moments as a promising forward, but just could never really break into the side properly. And when he was in, didn't contribute all that much.
Yeah, there's too many flat games really for him.
For Blight, we feel a little slighted by him because he was one game off of triggering a contract extension from being a mid-season pickup. And they just never played him for it. So there was clearly a reason as to why, and it's because I would like it to be explained to me as to why, but clearly there was a reason. Kalina was originally a basketball player, technically the tallest player in the AFL, who never actually got to play a game. Meaning he stands taller than like Max Gawn, than Mason Cox. I think
wasn't he the only player last year that didn't play for Richmond?
2. Him and Josh Smiley, because Smiley came in injured. Although from what we've seen over the off-season so far, Smiley looks really, really good in his training. So I'm very excited for next year for that.
Training the house down.
Kalina is also Noah Bolter's cousin, which is why he was originally brought into the list as well. But yeah, he had constant back issues for being so tall and for prior sports history. So was just really unfortunate. Kaczynski, we gave him 2 years. We only needed 2 years to not do anything. Egg on our face on that trade. It's fine.
I don't know if it's they didn't give up much for Kaczynski, did they?
No, I don't think we gave him much for him. So it was an attempt. It was karma for the Ty Vickery trade way back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. I feel
Um,
like the cosmic balance of the universe is restored.
the Macca trade, delisting, it does hurt because we love him so much, but we're going in a slightly newer direction with our wings, um, and obviously our forward line when he floated up down there a lot. Um, so it's very sad, but he'll probably end up just making an actual retirement post at some point. And then the Young trade, uh, he was such a good part of our back line, but he's close with Mini, he's close with Fridge and with Baker, so I'm not surprised that he ended up going to West Coast. And West Coast need his kind of talents down in their back line as well. So it's a big thing for them too.
Yeah, honestly, as I said, I think Richmond fans have much more optimism on the future. It's just, Blight and Young are like a few Richmond fans like yourself would just be like, eh.
Yeah, especially because they
disappointing.
were like big backline talent too. There are two other players that we don't currently know what's going on with them. We've been told it's because the club is waiting for the draft as to whether they're going to get new contracts or not, and that is Tyler Sonsi and I cannot remember the other player, and it annoys me that I'm forgetting, but it's someone who's been floating in and out of our best 22, and like I get why they're holding off. Oh no, sorry, I remember now. It's Tom. He's a Tom.
Tom McCall?
No, that's Kane McAuliffe. He's got a brother that plays for St Kilda.
Oh.
I'm blanking so hard on the name right now.
Oh.
I know exactly who it is. He stepped up massively.
Brown?
Yes, no, not Brown. I think he's a Tom. I can't remember.
No, I'm searching by Tom, so it better be.
Oh, I'm kicking myself right now.
Tom Lynch.
No, it's not Tom Lynch.
Where are we at? No, I can't be Tom then.
I'll find it.
Yeah, you do that. I'll jump onto the next one. You can take that task.
I found it. Thompson Dow.
Oh, Thompson Dow.
Okay.
I
knew it was a Tom technically. So him and Tyler Sonsi aren't being given contracts just yet because the club's waiting to see what they get out of the draft. I hope they actually both get at least 1 year extensions, especially Dow, because he looked really, really good prior to getting injured. Sonsi, I think he did step up in the last couple of games that he played. But he's been on our list a long time, and it hasn't been the greatest of developments for him. So I don't know if that's kind of why the club is mostly like holding out on him. But I hope that Dow at least gets a contract, because I think he became really solid, stepped up really massively when he was on the park in our midfield. But we also have a ton of these other young talented players in the system. So I completely understand why the club's kind of holding off on a slightly older player.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, like it's good to have an event like as talking about Gold Coast. It's like you can't just centralize. Like depth is good to have, but you can't just like be hanging on to players too much. Eventually, you just gotta let some harsh decisions go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might actually cover St Kilda next and just go back to the order that we were going in. So we've got Harry Boyd delisted, Zane Cordy delisted, Max Heath traded, Zach Jones delisted, Angus McLennan delisted, Ari Schoenmaker delisted, Jack Steele traded, and Jimmy Webster retired.
Yeah, I think honestly most of these are fairly straightforward. Ari Schoenmaker's a bit interesting. A lot of St Kilda fans were pretty big on him, but couple of times he played, he didn't really make much of an impact, so might be harsh. Few players Saints fans might think he was a bit underutilized maybe, but anyway. Everything else makes a bunch of sense. Zach Jones, they need to move on with. Zane Cordy wasn't really doing anything in the back line anymore. Yeah. pretty straightforward.
Yeah, agreed.
Anything else?
No, I think we can jump over to Sydney now.
All right. Sydney. Jack Buller traded. Robbie Fox delisted.
We
Ollie
did talk
Florent.
about that. Sorry, just to interject, but we did talk about Robbie Fox in last week's episode. He in fact joined Tasmania as part of their VFL
yeah.
squad. So he's still got some upside. He's still in the system. Hopefully, we'll see him part of the AFL squad when they officially come in.
Yeah, Ollie Florent traded. Aaron Francis delisted. Will Hayward traded. Indy Kirk? Yeah.
I think it's Indy, yeah.
Delisted. Blake Laidler delisted. Caleb Mitchell delisted. And Ben Patton delisted. Yeah, as I said, a bit of depth, bit of fail. I mean, Ben Patton obviously picked up from St Kilda and didn't quite find his way into the side. Aaron Francis didn't really find his way at either end. So, yeah, again, their backline depth is still horrible. But, yeah, as I said, the rest are pretty straightforward, I would say. Obviously, losing Will Hayward sort of sucks. I mean, they chose to, so.
True.
Yeah.
True, that is actually their decision. That'll be egg on their face.
Yeah, again, it's like, I don't know. But, yeah, as I said, there's problems, but I don't think, like, Sydney are a write-off, and I don't think these delistings are, like, the main concern I have for them, so, but I will say is that, man, some of their depth is bad.
Yeah.
Not that they're losing any players that would, like, fix any huge holes. Like, Ben Patton, even when he was in, wasn't, like, adding too much, so, you know. But,
yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
All right, jumping over to West Coast now with a couple of interesting moves. Granted, a couple of the interesting ones are actually retirees, but besides that, Oscar Allen being free agency, Campbell Chesser traded, Jaden Hunt retired, Callum Jamieson delisted, Jeremy McGovern retired, Jack Petracca delisted, Locke Rawlinson delisted, Liam Ryan traded, and Dom Sheed retired.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, like, West Coast have finally, like, cast off most of their older depth. With only a few ones remaining. Obviously, Elliot Yeo, if you want to call Tim Kelly old depth now, comparatively he is. And yeah, it's probably, probably like Cripps and here's the other one that I sort of backed a bit this year. Duggan, that's it.
Yeah.
In terms of other things, Campbell Chesser never really was the player that West Coast wanted him to be. Gets traded for another chance. Good to see it, but yeah, I don't think he really fit in whatever they were doing. Jameson got a few chances, didn't really do much. Petracca was probably a bit of the point. That was meant to be one of the next bigger ones. I never quite rated him. He was always a bit more speed than ball use, but man, he had some exciting moments. Good for the highlight reels, but yeah, as I said, not the best ball user ever.
Yeah,
that's about it. I'd say. Oh yeah, losing Liam Ryan. Their forward lines now. I think pretty much we can confirm with Oscar Allen out and Liam Ryan out is their forward line is going to be pretty bad.
Yeah,
and it was bad last year with them somewhat playing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of going to be really hard, especially if Jake Waterman is still going to be injured for some parts of 2026. Yeah. I don't know if his injury will bleed too much into the start of the season, but that will.
I hope he doesn't bleed at all.
Well, to be fair, I hope that him and Elliot Yeo are able to get back on the park, because I feel like for someone like Yeo, he's one of those talents that was touted to be huge and just crumbled with injury for so long. That I hope he's able to get at least one good season before retiring.
As I said, I do love a good lethargic pill accumulator that like looks like they're doing nothing, but all of a sudden they'll have like 35 disposals and been in everything, and you're like, the heck? I swear, I only saw you move like 5 steps in that contest, and you've racked up 17 handballs. Anyway,
just knows how to move forward.
Exactly. Western Bulldogs. Final one here. Taylor Duray retired, Liam Jones delisted, Anthony Scott delisted, and Jamarra U-H traded. Did I say retired? Bulldogs might claim he retired midway through the season, but yeah, I meant not really much change here. I think we're all sort of in agreement that the Bulldogs are probably in the last, I would say the last, if not last couple of flag tilt years before their midfield
I would definitely
probably
say that
gets too old.
2026 is probably going to be like the last year, maybe second last year, of them to really have a good shot.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like a Beve last hurrah sort of deal at this point, but who knows? But yeah, so nothing too much. It's just depth that weren't really having much of an impact. Anthony Scott, who just played a few games and no one could say much more than existing, really. And Jamarra U-H we've already talked about at length. So yeah, as I said, it sucks that such a big talent, but it's also like, well, if a big talent's going to leave, at least they've got Norton and the best young forward in the competition in Sam Darcy. So
very true. Sorry, I was just quickly double checking something.
That's all right. I was like, man, I have to improv something quickly.
No, you're good.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that is it for retirees, delistings, and trades as per the end of the trade period. Again, as I mentioned, there's still a couple of moves that teams may make like delistings before the secondary free agency period opens up before the draft. But otherwise, we are going to move on now to the best and fairest.
Yeah, this has gone on for long. Do you want to skip the best and fairest and do that next one? Or
I was thinking about maybe holding off on the AFLW until next week instead.
Yeah, wait till the end. Okay, yeah, I'll agree.
We've been sitting on this for a little bit, so I figured try and knock it out now.
Yeah.
So we're going to quickly run through the numbers. Like, we kind of have an idea as to how we rate all of these players as per each team anyway. So I'm just going to run through the top 10s. So we're starting with the Malcolm Blight medal.
Some surprise packets,
Yeah. So we're starting with the Malcolm Blight medal for the Adelaide Crows, with Jordan Dawson finishing first, Riley Thilthorpe second, Josh Worrell third, Ben Keys fourth, Alex Neil-Bullen in fifth, Isaac Rankin in sixth, Mark Keane in seventh, Rory Laird eighth, Jake Saligo in ninth, and Riley O'Brien in 10th.
Yeah, I think Riley O'Brien 10th is surprising to me. But again, there's what it is. I think it's also good to see that Keane and Worrell, who we rated a fair bit last year. Worrell not so much because he was injured by memory, but yeah, as I said, getting actual recognition in the top 10 list, definitely deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of this is fairly accurate. Just overall how the team performed along the season. I'm surprised that Worrell is actually top 3, maybe, because I would have thought that maybe someone like Keys or Neil-Bullen might have been a little bit higher. But overall, he was one of those key cogs to their backline alongside.
Yeah, we're talking about 4 votes in a 140. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. It is extremely close.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dawson I think was always going to be the cut above. He had a fantastic season. Granted, had a couple of games where he was very quiet. That wasn't even really reflected in the Brownlow. For those games,
I'm sure. Maybe I'm a Jordan Dawson hater, but it's like I wouldn't have said he was the best player in the Crows, but like I do believe just from the back half, like he's easily top 3.
Oh yeah,
I would have put Phil first, but yeah, I must admit, there's no one else I'd be putting ahead of Dawson apart from Phil Thorpe. So,
well, this also makes it his 3rd consecutive win for the medal, with 2024 having tied with Ben Keys and winning it solo in 2023.
Yeah, taking over the desk as the perennial halfbacker turned midfielder, just dominating the medal.
Pretty much.
And a random rub in 2020.
Yes. All right. Next on the list is Brisbane's Merrett Murray medal, with Josh Dunkley taking up first position, Huma Cluggage in second, Will Ashcroft third, Harris Andrews in fourth, Jasper Fletcher and Darcy Wilmot tied for fifth, Dane Zorko and Zach Bailey tied for seventh, Cam Raider in ninth, and Jared Berry in 10th.
Yeah, I think this is like a good example of like how much of a forward half team Brisbane was. Honestly, Harris Andrew being fourth, you might say, is a bit of a harsh out, but yeah, as I said, they're just so spread in that midfield. Like honestly, I would probably have McCluggage over Dunkley, but like they were both absolutely fantastic. So like, who cares?
And they both had
And
phenomenal
then Will
seasons.
Ashcroft as a third-year player, absolutely fantastic. Third or second?
Uh, second. Third.
No, surely.
Third. It's third.
Yeah. Anyway,
And Josh
really good.
Dunkley wins it officially over taking the reins from Lachie Neale, having granted Lachie Neale wins it in every other year, having won it in 2020, 22, and 24. So it maybe Lachie Neale will suddenly have an outstanding performance in 2026, despite his age and his injuries.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, half a Lachie Neale is still a good Lachie Neale.
This is true, as we saw in the grand final. This is true. All right, jumping over to Carlton now for the John Nichols medal. With George Hewitt taking out first position, Jacob Wiedering in second, Adam Charo in third, Nick Haynes in fourth, Patrick Cripps in fifth, Tom De Koning in sixth, Ollie Hollands in seventh, Sam Walsh in eighth, Zach Williams in ninth, tied with Adam Sard, and also tied with Jack Silvani.
Yeah. So again, not too surprising. Carlton at their best was a very forward half team. I think Nick Haynes would be the one that you're sort of really happy with. Considering that as a pickup, I don't think many people were expecting Haynes to be integral. I don't think anyone would have predicted him to be above Patrick Cripps. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, everything else is fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I think
it's just a shame that a chunk of this list they are losing.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with seeing Hewitt up there again. When Kennedy left to the Bulldogs, he was kind of the player to step into Kennedy's position. And
honestly, it's probably an underrated year.
Absolutely, I agree. I think Hewitt has performed exceptionally well and definitely surprised a lot of people this year. And that takes away from Cripps winning his sixth best and fairest, currently sitting at 5 from winning it in 2024.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to go through some of these?
Yeah. Feel free
I'm not
to
sure if I've actually said any of them, so I'll take over this one. Collingwood, the controversial EW Copeland Trophy. Massive outrage. Dacos was about to join the trade period after being told that, he was deserved second in the Brownlow, and then he came second in his own team's playing competition. Darcy Cameron takes out first place. With Nick Dacos, as mentioned, being second. Isaac Quaynor, very good year at third. Jamie Elliott, fourth. Harry Perryman, fifth. Josh Dacos, sixth. Steele Sidebottom, after that blistering first half for the old-timer, in seventh. Not behind him by far, Scott Pendlebury, and a big age gap to Ned Long in ninth, finishing off with your favourite, Jack Crisp.
Yeah, apart from the really, really funny snub of Nick Dacos, that has suddenly asked them to question their entire voting system, I think this is a very good list. Especially Quaynor. Quaynor had a fantastic season. It's good to see him be rewarded for it. Jamie Elliott, despite being in and out a little bit with injury, still had a fantastic season as a small forward. Harry Perryman stepped up massively, I think, for them as well, and had a very solid season. Again, the veterans with Sidebottom and Pendlebury, it's amazing at what they were able to do for most of this season, and the fact that
Elliott didn't actually miss a game this season.
Did he not? No, I thought he did. Okay, fair enough then.
That was last year. 25 games.
Fair enough. But yeah, then for Sidebottom and Pendlebury to still do what they did for most of the season is astounding. Ned Long, it's very good to see him perform really, really well in this list. After kind of struggling with his previous team. And Jack Crisp, always putting in 110% effort, hasn't missed a game yet, and I love that of him.
Did Ned Long play for another team?
I'm pretty sure
he's only Collingwood. I think you're thinking of Ben Long, who played for St Kilda.
I know Ben Long.
Oh, he used to play for Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a trade, I'm pretty sure. Or it was like a rookie pickup, something like that.
Yeah, 5 games. I stand corrected. I apologize.
I knew this was his second club.
Yeah. Anyway, skittishly moving along.
Yes, we'll do the Bombers now. Do you want to go through this one?
Talking about skittish, Zach Merrett would have been very skittish as he accepted the Crichton medal, as he won on a bit above the rest, 217 compared to 186 made by Archie Roberts. One of those players that contributed fairly well, but you probably wanted someone else winning it, getting second. Sam Durham, fairly solid year at third. Andrew McGrath, handy when needed. Nick Martin, bit of a drop off this year, but still fairly useful. Mason Redman contributed a fair bit. Xavier Dersma, handy on the wing when he was there. Same with Jye Caldwell, but the inside midfield. Jackson Pryor did really good in his new team.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Wright was good in patches.
Yeah, I think this isn't surprising in the slightest. Again, a lot of injury to a lot of this list definitely probably is a reason, apart from Zach Merrett being Zach Merrett, is probably why a lot of this list is skewed towards him the most.
Spread.
But otherwise, I think this is fairly commendable list. Like the fact that there's a huge gap between McGrath and Martin kind of shows the issues they had with injury, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it felt like there was only enough core that could stay on the park long enough because Nick Martin, last 6 games of the season, Dersma missed a chunk. I think Redmond was out for a couple too. So yeah, as I said, they honestly didn't have enough to be able to rack up the votes. As I said, I think Andrew McGrath sort of got a bit lucky in that regard. Not that he had a bad year. I just want to call him top 4, but yeah. As I said, Merrett wins his 6th medal.
Yes, he does. All right, let's jump over to Fremantle now with the Doig medal. And Caleb Serong takes out first position, with Andrew Brayshaw taking 2nd, Josh Tracy in 3rd, Luke Jackson in 4th, Jordan Clark in 5th, Brennan Cox in 6th, Michael Frederick in 7th, Sam Switkowski in 8th, Pat Voss in 9th, and Heath Chapman in 10th.
Yeah, I think the couple of really good ones is that Frederick and Switkowski Switter had a bit of a down year last year, and Frederick, I was sort of questioning his role in the team. Proved that he still could find a little place for him. Honestly, I'm a tiny bit surprised that the Rising Star medalist, Murphy Reid, didn't make it up there. I would have rated his year above Heath Chapman, but anyway, shows what I know. But apart from it, relatively agree. I'll probably put Jackson over Tracy as well, but I think Tracy had a few really big games. I think Tracy would have got a few more max votes, whereas Jackson had a lot of games where he would have been just polling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially the couple of games where Tracy just kicked a bag is probably those games where he would have gotten the maximum votes and edged out Luke Jackson in that regard. Otherwise, I think both of them fantastic seasons in their specific roles. And honestly, I'm surprised that Clark, Cox, and Chapman are all very much recognized in terms of their efforts in the backline.
Oh, they rate Jordan Clark so much. I think Clark is probably one of the most one of the people in WA really appreciate how good Jordan Clark is, and then I don't think the East side really understand. Yo, Victorians. He used to be a Victorian, but you caught him at Geelong, so that's not Victoria.
Geelong is a foreign land sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway,
speaking of Geelong, do you want to cover their medal?
Yeah. So Max Holmes going back to back in the Kaji Greaves medal. He sort of edged out Bailey Smith. He was 2nd. Jeremy Cameron winning the Coleman and making a very good effort in the best and fairest. Tom Atkins, what a year. The Grind Horse got 4th. Mark Blitzarves, another grinder, got 5th. Surprisingly above Grind Myers, who got 6th. Ollie Dempsey continuing his young form. Zach Guthrie, 8th. Sean Manor, another sublime, young-ish player, if you believe the AFL. And Patrick Dangerfield showing the old man still has it. So Mac Holmes goes back to back for his 2nd medal, taking over Tom Stewart and Cam Guthrie, who also won 2 medals in the 2020s.
Yeah, this list not all that surprising to me. Again, I'm very surprised that Blitzov said Jagger Myers. But also they both had very very solid seasons. Again, Blitzov was used a lot more for his utility rather than just as a rock, which
I feel like Blitzars is like a coach's sort of player as well. Like,
yeah.
I think coaches just like having Mark Blitzars around, so they tend to really like his output.
He does a lot of really good things, and we talked about that in the last couple of games of the season.
Yeah,
As to
patches
he
up the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jeremy
Oh,
Cameron makes a lot of sense. Coleman medalist. Kicked a bunch of bags against a bunch of teams. Was always going to get some pretty high votes there. Tom Atkins, the absolute workhorse. His tackling
hmm.
and pressure acts, like he's just work rate was second to none. And then
Yeah.
Max Holmes and
I think I
Bailey
called him a
Smith
grind horse. I don't
running.
know what a grind horse
You
is,
can't have a
but
grind horse, but it's kind of the same thing.
yeah.
And then Max Holmes and Bailey Smith just running rampant through that midfield. Like they were always, I think, always gonna top out in the top two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right,
Gold Coast. I can take this one.
go for it.
Brownlow medal winner is also the best and fairest. Taking out the club champion, not yet to be named the Andrew Swallow Award.
I hope they name it
Andrew
the Andrew.
David.
I hope they name it
David.
the Swallow, David Swallow. Yeah, I hope they
Yeah.
name it the David Swallow Award. I feel like it'd be very fitting.
Yeah. So Matt Rao wins 1 point over Noah Anderson. He got second. Who was 1 point ahead of Tick Miller, who was in third. So definitely a midfielder's award, but they generated so much it wasn't surprising. Bailey Humphrey and he's a bit of a, I don't know if you call it redeem year, but he's definitely tracking a bit better than what you could ask. In the fourth, Sam Collins, fifth, Jared Witts and Ben Long share sixth. 8th is John Noble, 9th is Will Powell, and 10th is Ben King. So yeah, obviously, appreciating that midfield a lot, and as I said, a few serviceable people are getting recognised here and there. Maybe I ought to put Noble a bit higher, but yeah.
I personally probably would have put Noble a bit higher. I think he was easily the best player off of halfback this season. Which is weird considering.
Well, to be fair, it's the highest rated halfbacker.
Oh,
so
this is true.
There's no other halfbackers in that list.
Which
so.
it is surprising when you compare it to the fact he Daniel Rioli was also in this list and just wasn't really cited for like half of the year, even though he was definitely playing. Then you've got the Jared Witts Ben Long duo. Witts did so much good work in the ruck. He was fantastic in the ruck all season long. Ben Long showing a lot of talents up forward, even if he wasn't entirely accurate all of the time, similar to Ben King. But Ben King, again, the number one key forward for them, still did a fantastic job for the most part. And then, the three key midfielders in Rowell, Anderson, and Miller. Not surprising at all. They were all fantastic. Even when Took Miller was out with injury for a little bit there, they all still played fantastic games.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Maybe I took this one to play in the weird list. That is the Giants' best and fairest.
It looks like they
You want to take this one and just take the next, or?
Yeah, I may as well because it seems like they
I was gonna see if
entirely
there's
revealed their
a
numbers
list.
for this one. So we only have a top three.
Yeah.
And it's Tom
I'll
Green,
quickly...
Finn Callahan, and Connor Iden. I think Tom Green was always made a lot of sense to probably take the number one position. Had a fantastic season.
Yeah.
Finn Callahan also makes sense to take up second. They both were running rampant in that midfield.
Okay, I've got the top 10.
Yeah, go
on. Okay, sorry. So you say, did you say Connor Iden at third?
Yes.
Lockie Ash is fourth. Toby Green, fifth. Lockie Whitfield, sixth. Sam Taylor, seventh. Harry Himmelberg, eighth. Jack Buckley, ninth. And Aaron Cadman with that brilliant back half of the year got in at 10. And as you said, I think it's just as phenomenal as Ash is, I'm really glad that they rated Connor Iden because he had some underrated shutdown jobs in a weirdly leaky defense.
Yeah, I think we talked about this during the season. I think when they kind of had those injury issues with their two key backs, it kind of really opened them up a little bit. And then when they came back, it still didn't really fix their issues. But their
Yeah,
halfbackers managed to step up fairly well in areas when they needed to, and they still put on some fairly commendable work, which is why someone like Iden, for an example, was
Mhm.
recognised.
Yeah, as I said, it's like what all three of their halfbackers were in the top six. So
But yeah, like when Buckley and Taylor both go down, like you kind of have to step up massively because they're such key
yeah, I don't
defenders.
know. I think they also didn't have that great a year as well. Yeah, I mean Taylor was only a bit off the mark. Buckley was probably the biggest one that was like just not quite as good.
I think I think the
Who
issue is
knows
that
why? They'll probably
Taylor is
bounce
able to
back next year.
shine when Buckley's there, but if Buckley's not there, it's a little too much pressure for him. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. He did all right last year. I think it's just that I think the Giants just conceded a lot of inside 50s compared to like how much they were getting themselves, and that just puts a lot of pressure on the
Yeah,
defense.
that too probably.
Honestly, I think it's more structural. They also concede a lot from the midfield, and it's hard to defend from midfield stoppages.
Also true. All right, jumping over to Hawthorn now with the Peter Crimmins medal. Jack Gunston took out the first position, which is very, very solid for him. It's his second Peter Crimmins medal, in fact. And, being the veteran goal sneak, the old timer that he is, fantastic work. Carl Amon taking up second position, Dylan Moore in third, Jye Newcomb in fourth, Blake Hardwick in fifth, Jack Ginnivan also in fifth, Josh Battle, the newcomer, coming in at seventh. Jarman Impey in 8th, Nick Watson in ninth, and equal 10th is Lloyd Meek and Mabior Chol.
Yeah, all players that had very quality years. I will say, Dylan Moore surprising me at third. I thought he was a bit patchy at times, but his best was pretty good. But yeah, as I said, I think Hawthorn just pretty even spread in terms of players, except for like Gunston and Amon. Impey may have been a bit better in the back half of the year than Amon, but I think Amon would have been racking votes fairly consistency. So yeah. Again, not too many raps on Carl Amon's year, but for a player that was like borderline All Australian, yeah, really good.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is extremely accurate. They all had fantastic seasons. I think Nick Watson was a little bit quieter in the start, but has picked up massively in that second half. Same with Ginnivan.
Once he moved to the middle, he went pretty big.
Yeah, and especially with Chol as well. Chol stepping up massively throughout the year, had some fantastic games. I'm very glad to see he got recognized for that. Lloyd Meek, again, he broke the hit out count on I think 2 occasions, in fact, during this season. So it's good to see him recognized for his solid ruck work and around the ground work. He was very solid with that too. But yeah, I'm not surprised that Gunston took out first position again. Like when you let an old man kick a bag or a multiple of them, like he's gonna get recognized for it.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like smart forward. Yeah, and as I said, Hawthorn don't really have that big a. They're not very centric team. So as I said, like even Jye Newcomb, for as good as his first half of the year was, they did spread it out with the rising of Josh Ward.
Yes.
The former Richmond player Connor Nash was very handy. So, and they weren't that strong midfield anyways.
Was Nash with us? I don't think he was with us.
Wasn't?
I'm pretty sure he wasn't.
Nash
Unless he was a VFL listed player.
Oh, Nash was a former Richmond player.
No, I don't think so.
I'll look it up.
We'll double check on that. Whilst you're doing that, I will jump over to the Melbourne votes, just to get ahead of you for this one. Max Gawn taking out number 1, which no one I don't think is really surprised about. Christian Petracca taking number 2, Cozzy Pickett with number 3, Jake Bowie at 4th, Christian Salem at 5th, Kate Chandler at 6th, Clayton Oliver 7th, Ed Langdon in 8th, Harvey Langford in 9th, and Jack Viney rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, I don't know what you want to say. It's good or bad that like a first-year player like Harvey Langford can do so high on that list. But yeah, as I said, it was pretty mixed bag. But there were some good performances. Christian Salem sort of had an under the radar sort of year.
Yeah.
Kate Chandler did pretty well. Cozzy Pickett again, pretty much borderline. Was he All Australian? I can't remember. I put him in my All Australian, but yeah, and Max Gawn obviously fantastic, and yeah, but they lose their second, 7th in that list. So yeah, as I said, yeah, bit of movement going on there.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Yeah, it doesn't actually say if this is Max Gorn's first. Oh, third. Okay, I was going to say first since 2019.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
It says in the little blurb. I don't pull anything off the top of my head. I was also completely wrong about Connor Nash as well.
Yeah, I knew you were. I
exposing myself here.
All right. Do you want to run through North Melbourne?
Oh, North. Yeah, seem a bit communistic because they have shared winners. Couldn't split between Harry Sheasel and Trishan Sherry. Both a tiny bit above Luke Davies Uniac. He still pulled pretty well. Luke Parker got fourth. Jye Simpkin got fifth, even with his struggles we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Daniel got sixth.
Yeah, that one.
Colby McKercher seventh. Tom Powell eighth. Sam Zahar ninth, and Paul Curtis 10th. Honestly, weird list.
Yeah, the Caleb Daniel one is definitely the weirdest one out of these. Because I don't think anyone. I think his first half wasn't too bad, but no one rated him after the second half.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
I would put Curtis over Simpkin.
I'm surprised Zohar didn't rate higher, to be honest. I'm not surprised that Paul Curtis didn't because he was out quite a bit.
I know, but
bit of injury with suspension.
Only 3 games, wasn't it? He only missed 3.
I think he missed a little bit more because it was. I think suspension.
I think every player is injured. Plays.
Yeah.
Every time it's like, this player's injured, and it's like they played 20+ games, Blazy. That's all right.
But no, I think Sheasel and Sherry, fantastic work from both of them. LDU had a very, very consistent season. There are only maybe 1 or 2 games where either he was down in his own output or he was just getting outright bullied by a player in the midfield. But otherwise, I think it's a fairly admirable list. Next on the list, though, is Port Adelaide. So I'll let you do this one.
Yeah, might as well. Not surprisingly, the most consistent and the bailout option, that is Zach Butters, took out the John Cahill medal, making it his 3rd in a row. Behind him was the ever reliable and forced to be reliable because there's no other option, Mitch Georgiadis. Connor Rosie made up for a bit of a slow start and got a respectable 3rd. There's a bit of a gap until we get Joe Richards and Aleer, who was forced into a lot of hard situations in that back line. Miles Bergman, again, a few bad games, but had enough really solid games to poll highly. Darcy Byrne-Jones, always trying, probably a lot of accumulative votes. It's probably the same with Lockie Jones, although he had a couple of fantastic games, as well as Asava Radaglia, who honestly had a solid year for everyone giving him crap. So I'm happy to see him up there. And we've got a shared 10th in Jason Horn-Francis, who played half the season, and Ollie Wines, who accumulated well, but didn't quite probably have an impact at times.
Yeah, I completely agree with this list. Like, Zach Butters, like, Port would have been in a lot worse position if he wasn't out there.
Oh, far and away. Like, Georgiadis would have been like a worthy winner still, but how much Zach Butters makes the team better is scary to me.
Agree.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, especially with some of the trade news, like, don't ever leave.
No.
Oh, who knows? It might change on the car. He might get a bit more even.
We'll see. But yeah, no, I completely agree otherwise with that list. Again, despite some of the issues that a player like Aleer or Asava Radaglia kind of had in that defense, they both were absolute workhorses when they needed to be and managed to repel and deflect everything that they could. Sometimes, obviously, it was too much, but they were absolutely dependable down back. But yeah, I think that's a fairly solid list. Jumping over now to the Jack Dyer medal. And, you know, I was having a look at this list earlier, and I pretty much completely agree with it. I'm not surprised. Tim Taranto, first position, or just edging out Nick Vlauston. I would maybe put Vlauston first, just because of his incredible intercept work. But Taranto was doing a lot of really good work in the midfield as well, so I'm not surprised about that. Jacob Hopper taking out 3rd position, the ever reliable, and I'm so glad he has become ever reliable. Ben Miller taking out 4th. He's been fantastic for us. Seth Campbell and Toby Nankervis tied 5th. Sam Banks coming in at 7th, which I'm very impressed about. He had a fantastic season in defense. Nathan Broad and Jack Ross tied at 8th, and I'm very happy with that as well, especially for Jack Ross. He's had a fantastic season as well through our midfield. And Dion Prestia, despite the fact that he only played like half a season, comes in at the top 10 in 10th.
Yeah, so as I said, Tim Taranto wins the second. Not too surprising. And yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. It's like, it's a good acknowledgement of the best of the younger team. And I know there wouldn't be too many other players approaching in terms of like who I would specifically say would stand out like over the year. But as I said, I still think there's enough good core to be optimistic.
If I was able to sneak someone into the top 10, it'd probably someone like Tom Brown or Luke Trainer. Mostly because Trainer played almost every game this season. And you know, still showed some very, very solid moments in his debut year. And Tom Brown, like Sam Banks, were extremely dependable in their positions throughout the season. So I probably would have given a little bit more of an edge to Tom Brown somewhere in the top 10, but I'm very happy otherwise with this list.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to take your second club in St Kilda?
Yeah, I'll take the Trevor Barker medal. So to no one's surprise, the $2 million man in Isaiah Wanganeen-Millera takes first position by a very, very huge margin. But however, Cal Wilkie takes out second place, which I'm very happy about. Again, very, very dependable in that backline the entire season long. Jack Sinclair rounds out the top 3. Max Hall in 4th. Marcus Windhager in 5th. Rowan Marshall in 6th. Jack Higgins in 7th. Cooper Sharman in 8th. Mitch Owens in 9th. And Jack McRae, the newly acquired player for their team, in 10th.
Yeah, I think the only big worry about is how many of these lists were very up and down. Like Cooper Sharman, a lot of high votes, but there was a lot of games where he didn't do that much. Probably same with the other one, Mitch Owens.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, mostly very good contributors for the year. And I think Max Hall had one of the biggest breakout years that no one really talked about, really.
Yeah, considering
I don't even think we talked about it a bit on the podcast, but
considering he was a mid-season pickup, kind of just stuck in the VFL for a while. Yeah, when he came in, he just kind of blew this team wide open with what he was able to produce.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, even like other up-and-comers like Hugh Boxall sort of got pushed out because Hole just came in and didn't miss a beat.
Yeah. But the fact that, like the huge gap between Naz and Wilkie, and then the huge gap between Sinclair and Hall, kind of shows like who the 3 key players are right now for St Kilda.
I think so, yeah. I said Jack McRae, probably surprised he didn't get a few more votes, but maybe it was just because of like
his output in the second half was quite low.
Yeah, it did wane a bit, yeah.
All right. Sydney time.
Bob Skilton medal, and it is to no surprise, even though it was close, Isaac Heaney won a second straight Bob Skilton medal in a very different season, fair to say, for Sydney.
Yes.
Obviously, kicked so many goals from that midfield, no surprise he took it out. But Brady Grundy made a respectable second with a blistering back half. Like, as I said, he would have been a back half All-Australian ruckman, maybe. But yeah, that's what it is. James Jordan, the tagger, surprising, like a technically bottom 10 team has a tagger as in the top 3, but he had a fantastic year. Chad Warner had a very serviceable year. Tom McCartan, only real standout in defence. Sam Wicks, the surprise packet in defence. And Nick Blakey, the not quite as good as last year Nick Blakey, but still pretty solid. James Rowbottom, dropped off a bit, few games out in the injury, still made pretty high. Same with Justin McInerney and Jake Lloyd, who was pretty reliable in the back half after being mediocre in the first half of the year.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with this list. Heaney and Grundy being at the top, I'm not surprised. Again, they were the key 2 players throughout that entire season. They played majority of the games, in fact, maybe all of the games, which it's not surprising at all as to why they're voted so high. James Jordan, again, it's weird that Sydney have a tagger when they were having the season that they were, but he did a fantastic job on some incredible players. Like you cannot fault him at all. He managed to shut down Nick Floston of all players. Like when you have a player like James Jordan who can actually kind of play at any position of the ground as a tagger,
Hmm.
shows how
Ah,
important it can be in some cases.
we haven't seen a forward shutdown moment like that since Big Stack Billy took down Harris Andrews in the 2023 Grand Final.
You had to bring up Big Billy Frampton, didn't you?
Of course, of course. Can't talk about forward jacking without Big
I am
Stack.
surprised that Nick Blakey wasn't given a couple more votes, considering he was forced to kind of flex around the ground a little bit.
Yeah, I think people were a bit harsh on Blakey. I don't think he was defensively as bad as people thought he was, but yeah, I think just Sydney were structurally bad.
Yeah, they had issues all around the ground.
Yeah, but I said it's just an awkward fit of trying to make a normally more aggressive player play a bit more accountable. But he still had a lot of generation from that back line. Like he had some very nice generation stats. As I said, anyone saying that he had a bad year, I think is a bit reactionary.
Yeah.
He had a solid year, just not quite as pretty as 2024 Blakey.
Yes, I agree. All right, jumping over now to the Eagles with the John Worsfold medal. And to no one's surprise, honestly, Richmond player Liam Baker is the one to actually take it out in his first year at the club, with Ruben Ginby in second, and Harley Reid in third, Jack Graham, the Fridge, in fourth, Brady Hoff in fifth, Ryan Merrett in sixth, Liam Duggan in seventh, Liam Ryan in eighth, Elijah Hewitt in ninth, and Jamie Cripps in 10th. Again, this is kind of a really hard list to kind of judge just because of the Eagles being so bad. But you can definitely understand why Baker, Ginby, Reid, Graham are their top four, because they were probably their four best players, apart from maybe throw Harry Edwards in there. But he was dealing with a bit of injury throughout the season.
You can say it. That one does like a 15 game, I reckon. Harry Edwards, 16 games.
Oh, yeah.
So
he definitely missed out on a fair few votes because of the games that he missed.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, there's a few others like that. Obviously a lot of experimenting. But I think Ryan Marich is a pretty impressive. Like, again, not great for the Eagles to have him as your top six players, but he's like a player that you might not expect to get step up. I thought he might just have been playing because it's the Eagles and they don't have that many options, but
Sure.
he took a really positive step this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Elijah Hewitt, again, good to see him playing a bit. And Gibney obviously is the big story because we thought Brady Hoff was going to be like the standout defender that they're going to build around in terms of like that intercepting. You know, can play a bit tall, but he went into the midfield, still did really well, and Gibney really took to that defensive position.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the fact that they're now bolstering their defense, even though they did lose some important veteran talent due to retirement in Tyler Young, that'll be a lot much better to help support Ginby and Harry Edwards in that regard. And then hopefully with a list like this, even though, you know, someone like Cripps, like Duggan, very much, you know, pushing it in terms of retirement age, are going to be able to help this young team kind of push a little bit higher and maybe get out of the bottom four. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Talking about a team who wants to be well above the bottom four, we've got the very unlucky ninth teams. One of the unluckiest ninth teams in history, the Western Bulldogs, with the Charles Sutton medal, with Ed Richards claiming it, beating Marcus Bontempelli, who handicapped himself to prevent his seventh medal. So Ed Richards first, Marcus Bontempelli second, Tom Liberatore third, Aaron Norton fourth, massive year for him, Bailey Dale, very solid halfbacker, Matthew Kennedy in his fantastic year, Sam Darcy, another player he handicapped himself and still finished solid, Rory Lobb, again, we've mentioned it before, maybe not quite as impactful as his rise last year, but absolutely fantastic considering the job. Joel Freer on that massive first half of the season dropped a little bit, but for his output and age, absolutely fantastic as a second-year player. And Riley West continues to be a solid young talent, getting 10th.
Fantastic list, honestly. I think this is all extremely accurate. Again, the Bont being out for the first 6 weeks or so Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely a
oh, was it
crazy
that
handicap
long?
for him. But
It's 5.
it was a couple of games. But it allowed
Yeah.
players like Libba, like Richards, like Dale, like Kennedy to step up massively in that midfield without him, and they still produced some. Again, granted they did finish ninth, but they still produced some fantastic results without him. Showed that they don't have to entirely be dependable on the Bond in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But it's always good to have him out there, and the fact that he still finished second just shows his work ethic and just how much he really does provide to this team.
Yeah, as I said, like Bond is like way more of a perennial bridesmaid than Nick Dacos will ever be, because
True.
that sexy man should have a ring on his finger and some silverware in his cabinet. Well, maybe not some silverware, but it's a medal, isn't it?
Yes, they get the Premiership
Yeah.
medal.
Anyway, exactly. So, but yeah, how many does have a premiership?
The one that I'm a little bit surprised about is Freya. Like I thought that maybe he might have just finished outside the top 10. But this also shows how valuable he was in that first half as well. Like he had some fantastic games.
Yeah, I think people were forgetting like how good those first half of the season. Like, I don't think he did that much in the second, but like, who cares? Like, you've already proven yourself, and like as I said, that'll be the player that they build on when some of the older veteran talents like Liberatore start to move on in age. They're probably going to move on from Trelaw. And yeah, as I said, Marcus Bontempelli probably a bit later on, but you're still thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Just on our last little bit of news, and I probably should have mentioned this when we finished up with the trade period, is these are all of the draft picks going into the draft in a couple of weeks. You will note that there are 4 clubs in the technically holding apart from we'll kind of semi count Carlton in this because they pick 9 and pick 11. But there are basically 4 clubs in the top 10, being West Coast with 1 and 2, Richmond with 3 and 4, the Bombers with 5th and 6th, and the Demons with 7th and 8th, and Hawthorn have picked 10, of course. Feel free to pause the video or go find this yourself on the internet. It's a ton of picks. It's too long to read out, but I figure we just show this off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
it's very interesting.
in terms of our own team, Port decided to do nothing this draft period. I don't really mind that. We've been like a 3rd rounder onwards accumulator for a while. We've done a very aggressive with our 1st round draft picks, but yeah, as I said, that's whatever. Richmond, obviously, yeah, they done a lot of moves to ensure they've gotten some high level draft picks to complement their high level draft picks.
We can thank North Melbourne for the early 2 picks.
Yeah, we thought it was a bit. So I'm surprised how much North got away with that last year. Like, I didn't say it was like terrible, but I was like, it's going to be a bit surprising. Like, if it wasn't giving up at least a top 7 draft pick, and it ends up being pick 4. So yeah, as for all the else, yeah, as I said, a few clubs have like decent. I think Gold Coast have probably the best draft hand for how they finished in the year. I'd say.
Yeah,
maybe
them in
Hawks.
Brisbane. But if you look at just where those picks kind of sit in terms of the grand scheme of things, fair chance 50-50 on whether half of them will actually get used. But it remains to be seen. Apparently, a lot of the talent will end up just going off at the top end, and like from 50 onwards, it's going to be quite a variable.
I mean, it always is.
It's
As I said, like after pick 20, you just like after pick 20, you go from like the difference between like a crapshoot of like an average of like I think it's like 50 to 60 games in the top 10, and then it goes to like 10, and then it just drops off by minuscule amounts per round.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it just kind of is what it is. We're not talented enough to kind of judge how a draft is going to look. We don't really know too much about the players. We don't have that kind of.
I don't think anyone's talented enough to know how a draft's going to look. It's just a bunch of crap shooting. That's all the draft ever is. But
that is true.
You can make logical decisions to support your crap shooting, and I think I don't really see any team apart from North doing the Whitlock trade last year that's really screwed themselves out here.
The only player that I know for sure that we're likely going to get is Kellaway, due to father son. But otherwise, yeah, I got no real idea as to who we're kind of looking at or anything like that. So
Yeah, Danny, I'm not even going to pretend like I know who pick 49 and 85 will be in the draft.
we were going to do some recaps on the AFLW, but we will save that for next week because I don't think we're going to have too much to really talk about next week. So we'll cover all of that. That'll
Last
allow
round
us
of the
to go.
AFLW too. Hype that up a bit.
Yes, put hype for Freo and Richmond clash.
Yeah, beats on ground, hopefully.
Yeah, I wish I could make it over for it, but with some news that I got earlier last week, I cannot. That's a topic for another time. It is actually up on my Twitter.
Yeah.
If you're curious, so please go check out my socials. Because of that, I won't be streaming for a little bit due to stuff. Just leave it there. But yes, this is the end of episode 80. Thank you all so much for coming to hang out with us this week. Again, please go check out socials. Leave a like. Please comment. Leave a comment for if you want to tell us things you want us to talk about in the off season. Again, we've still got some couple of things that we can still cover, but we would love your ideas, even if they're non-AFL related. Like, we're happy to give it a shot as to spin-off episodes for a bit. Even if we want to talk about movies, TV shows, music, whatever.
Yeah, it's like the podcast era. Like we're just fluffing around until the post-December, New Year's
Pretty
preseason
much
stuff.
We're pretty much just kind of like gonna get through the AFLW until the men's draft. Then we'll cover that. We'll take a couple of breaks here and there throughout December and probably a little bit of January, just whilst we let other content build. Unless we figure out some stuff to talk about, and then it'll be back to our preseason work as the start of the men's season ramps back up. So yeah, that will do it for us. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and hopefully we will see you all next week for episode 81. I don't really think there is much else for us to mention or plug or anything like that.
I think we're good.
All right, then in that case, hopefully you have some beautiful weather during your week, because right now it's kind of miserable here in Melbourne. I think it's raining also over there for you too.
Yeah, we had like a couple of freak storms, and it's like, man,
yeah,
too much. Too much weather. Like,
it's been raining all day.
It was better weather in Melbourne than it was here when I went to PAX, and that's the most disgusting statement I can say as a WAN. Like, that's just.
I'm sorry that we finally had a good week of weather.
Yeah, which was like still 25s and a few rainy days, but anyway,
it's better than the cold. But yes, so we're just kind of rambling at this point. Thank you all so much, and we will see you all next week for episode 81. Take care.